Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. I see we have a lot of our friends in the chat already. I see Lucky Burrito out there, Words of Will, SD, Shadowban Refugee, Victoria Jen, Thomas, Oklahoma, Jack Schiff. Just want to say what's up to everybody out there. Victoria Jen, Tom. I guess well, we will hop right into it. As you guys can see, we have a very special guest. So I would like for you guys to welcome, hopefully warm welcomes, welcome Fiorella Isabel of the Convo Couch and part of the MCSC network. Fee, how are you doing tonight?
Hi, pretty good, pretty good. You know, in spite of all the craziness going on.
Oh,
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
Chris, brother, how are we doing tonight?
Oh, man, just hanging in there, man. Can't complain. Excited for the show. I had a long week, putting a lot of hours as usual, but there's a lot of things to talk about and break down. Looking forward to hearing Fiorella on the main topic, as it gets annoying, so I kind of tune out from time to time. So it's good we have people like her who like actually pay attention to this shit because I'm kind of over it.
Yeah.
I understand, but it's honestly just warming up, in my opinion. All right, so let's go on ahead and throw the intro
You're
on
right.
our new intro. Hopefully, you guys like it.
Because you have a question that you need an answer to.
Hello, and thank you for joining me. This is the political matrix.
Bookmarks, because these words did not come from us.
Mostly kidding. Mostly.
And the garlic aioli.
And then they're going to change their narrative to Black Lives Matter to all Black Lives Matter, and then they're going to talk about LGBT.
So I felt like I wanted to put a couple of clips together.
Seltzer all day long. I love that shit.
Doesn't matter where we are. We obviously came up in there.
You know how he treats them. He don't treat them nice at all. He real rough with them, and you was a good match.
Budget, so much more, are forming this weird cabal.
Yeah, it's not. None of them are.
Do the Chinese own part of that?
So he picked Masvidal. So I have Kobe tonight. Whether it's Biden, whether it's Obama, just sitting up there.
There are people in the Green Party that can organize. No, they can organize. They usually just get blackballed by their own party too.
Taking orders from the private industry here.
You know, like I say, people come on here and they can say stuff they don't normally say on their own shows, which is fine.
Unmute. Hello, everybody. Glad to see. I see a couple more of our friends out there. Variant, Steve, Popeye Sailor. But we're gonna hop right into it. We're lucky enough to have Fee, but we don't have her as long as we'd like. So we're gonna get straight into this stuff. There is so much stuff going on, especially with this Russia-Ukraine stuff. We will talk about a little bit of Pfizer stuff a little bit later. We'll talk about some Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, but first off, I wanted to talk to Fiorella. I've noticed a lot of the Convo Couch's coverage has been excellent. Last week, of course, you guys saw we had Pasta on here, and so I'm happy to welcome Fiorella on here. I watched her live stream last night. Excellent talking to what was it? Rachel Blevins, Cynthia McKinney, Dr. Cynthia McKinney. Sorry, and was it Soraya? It was my first time. Running across her. Yes. And so thank you for, exposing me to her. But Fee, can you give us like your breakdown and understanding on all this stuff that's going on, especially right now?
Well, it's a lot. But I mean, what's going on is another psyop in the big picture sense of this. We went from Trump derangement syndrome to then Trump supporters derangement syndrome to then the pandemic and fear mongering about that. Whatever you may think of it, the point is that it was weaponized to divide. And then, of course, it was the unvaccinated as being the the evil villains of the story to now you must hate Putin and Russians, and you must also obey the Ukrainian flag waving call for democracy by an empire that has nearly 900 military bases all over the world and constantly overthrows regimes and does whatever it wants with the rest of the world. So, but still put that aside because Putin is trying to insert this Sudetenland that Hitler once did is the narrative. And never mind, what happened in 2014. So
Yeah.
that's like the big picture sense of what is going on. The reality is that this began a long time ago. Ukraine has had a neo-Nazi problem for decades. In fact, some of the fascist entities actually came out of the region. But you could go back, I guess, to simplify it to 2014 with a Maidan coup, where the US-backed neo-Nazis armed them, many of them, of course, from the C-14 and the Azov Battalion. And this was in the Donbas region, particularly Donetsk and Luhansk, where these people have been wanting their own sovereign independence for a very long time. And they have been asking Russia to recognize their independence. Once that coup began, there was attacks on ethnic Russians, on Slavs, and other minorities like the Romani. And there was neo-Nazis that began destroying everything from their camps to the culture of Russia, where they were burning books and also giving citations for people speaking Russia. Simultaneously, of course, there was the guy that comes in later on as Zelensky, who was funded by this gentleman that also funded the Azov Battalion. But of course, we can't forget about Victoria Nuland, who, along with Jeffrey Pyatt, decided to remove democratically elected leader Yanukovych, who wasn't even anything of a revolutionary of any kind. But they removed him and then, of course, inserted their own puppet, who then pretty much since then Ukraine stopped being essentially like a democratic state, one could argue, because it was no longer under the control of sovereign Ukraine. It was under the control of NATO and the West, who wanted to use Ukraine to expand their control of Eurasia, because there is this idea that who has control of Eurasia is going to have control of the world, and that's exactly what the United States wants to accomplish. And of course, the same players are coming back. Victoria Nuland just got done talking about admitting that there are bio.
Oh yeah, hold that feed before we get into that. I wanted us to go back up a little bit on what you said about Zelensky and like his whole rise to power. After the coup in 2014. A lot of people don't really understand that whole narrative of the billionaire who helped prop him up through his comedy career. And a lot of people like I was listening to your live stream from the other day, and it was talking about how a lot of people don't know Zelensky himself is a billionaire. I mean, this isn't just some like random, comedian who kind of had it hard and he just gained all this popularity all of a sudden. And then, this storybook, kind of ending, oh, he's the president now. And, it's a lot more going on. So can you explain to us a little bit more about the billionaire who's funding him and that whole network and how he's tied to the Azov Battalion?
Right. So Zelensky was a comedian, and he got like a comedy show on TV where initially they spoke Russian and it was geared towards the population. And I don't know if you guys saw the video that we just did, but we literally went over how this guy, he's this billionaire named Kolomoisky, and he had the TV show that starred Zelensky called Servant of the People. And that TV show was extremely popular. And in that TV show, Zelensky basically made jokes about how Ukraine was going to join NATO and how Barack Obama was their one real president, and how they that you could only move up and gain money by working with band right fascists. And if you look at the video, people are laughing.
Chris,
Although
can you grab that video? Oh, sorry to interrupt you, but can you
yeah,
grab that video?
there are some people that weren't obviously because they saw like.
Where'd you put it, Marcus?
It should be well, that's right. I didn't send it to you, but it should be on my Twitter when I retweeted Fiorella. But if you can't find it, don't worry about it.
I'll get it.
He also talked about having like how how like basically that Banderite, like uniting with Banderite fascists was a good thing to make a career. He talked about how NATO, he talked about the Jews and how they had Bandera's Kolomoski. Like he talked about all of this as if it was like a joke, but he of course isn't a teacher that became president, because that was the story. The story was that he was a working guy that became president. Well, the reality is he was an oligarch. And a lot of people, when they talk about Russians being oligarchs, they don't focus on the fact that there are oligarchs in Ukraine too. And there are obviously oligarchs in America, but it was just painted as like this fantasy. And moreover, his whole campaign, when he went through with the campaign, which was a party that was funded by by Kolomoski, was also called Servant of the People, which is insane. He ran under that party and he won, but his whole campaign was virtual, with YouTube videos, social media. And the reason a lot of people say he won is because he was just recognized by the public, and they painted him as an outsider, as somebody that was different than the typical politician. Where have we heard that before? We've heard it in Donald Trump. We've heard it in Barack Obama. You could even point to the Squad as being, particularly AOC or Sandy, as being like the next sort of generation of that. But this gentleman, Kolomoisky, was also funding the Azov battalion simultaneously. And this was known. So when people say that there's no such thing as real neo-Nazism going on in Ukraine because Zelensky is Jewish, they completely ignore the fact that Zelensky doesn't have control. First of all, he's a puppet. He's an actor, literally. And he was placed there for a reason, because he was complacent. Also, of course, the fact that their focus of the Azov battalion and of these fascist entities, these Banderite fascists that take their cues from Bandera, is really cleansing Russians. Like they don't like the Russians in particular. So it doesn't matter. And there, of course, you could go back to World War II of many cases where there were Jewish people of ethnic descent that were working with Nazis. I mean, this is nothing new. And now we have the Israeli army going in there and defending, working with these neo-Nazis. So there's no such thing as like, oh, just because you're Jewish, it means that you're not with these.
A lot of people don't understand about Stefan Bandera, and they don't understand like that connection and that history there. They also understand World War II and some of the collaboration. There's a reason why people were called collaborators. That was ethnically Jewish people who were working with Nazis.
Yes.
I mean, not saying that every single person is or not, but we're just saying that there were people who were collaborators. It's the same thing which, if you look in any kind of conflict, you look back to the Aztecs, the Incas, the Mayans, they always had somebody who was selling them out from the inside. I mean, almost to, I'll be careful with this term, but the slave who was inside the house, who always told of any rebellions or runaways or any of that stuff. You have people who do that. And so you can't just go, oh, well, he's Jewish, so there's no possible way he can be helping. Well, what about the Azov battalion, where he literally went to the Donbass region and tried to confront them, and they told him basically to go pound sand. They're like, dude, get out of here. We might even, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that they actually threatened to kill him, so,
that's why he won't rebel against them, because he doesn't have the power. Yeah.
I was going to say that narrative is for the people who don't think, who just like really just accept things as they see the headlines. They don't look any deeper. So it's, oh, he's Jewish, so he can't be affiliated with any Nazis. Every Jewish person hates Nazis, right? So you don't think about it. So when somebody says it, it's like, oh man, they're just conspiracy theorists and the rest of the other bullshit that they say. But with that being said, as Marcus alluded to, if you go back and look at World War II, there's a lot of collaboration. between the people call themselves whatever. You get banned these days. You don't know what the
Yeah.
you don't know what the guidelines are for getting banned these days. So you gotta be real careful in what you say. But yeah, go ahead, guys.
Yeah, Steve had something, and I want you to respond to this. And shout out to Steve from Slow News Day. Says Western Ukrainians are predominantly Germanic. Eastern Ukrainians are predominantly Russian and Russian Jew. Odessa used to be called the Gateway of Zion. For those who don't know what Zion is a reference to the ancient city and home in Israel. So that's what that means. So what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, 100%. The country has been divided for a very long time based on those ethnic divisions. And what would have been intelligent was to have two different countries, I guess, a long time ago, in my opinion. A lot of people have been asking, why is Russia acting now? And I think there's some sort of element to they were waiting and seeing how bad this would get. Also, if NATO would continue to expand eastward, which of course they did, duh. And of course, also China's
well, I want you to kind of expand on that a little bit. A lot of people think that no, I mean, okay, they've kind of alluded to playing footsie with Ukraine, but can you name off like some of those other countries? Because I can think of at least about 6 other countries which were considered buffer states between Russia and the West that now are part of NATO.
Well, like, are you talking about like Poland? Like what other countries?
Well, like Poland, like
because
what is
Poland's
it?
the biggest one, I think.
Poland's the biggest one.
Because Belarus is leaning on Russia right now.
Yeah, well,
and
Poland.
Yeah.
Poland is one which kind of fell in, which was a buffer state. I'm drawing a blank on myself.
Did Poland donate some ships, jets?
Planes is what they're what they're trying to work out. The deal is that Poland is going to send planes, MiG-28s, to America, and America is going to send those to Ukraine. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what I know so far, and I think Belarus is sending help to Russia from what I read.
Yeah, I don't know why they would need the extra jets though. I mean, that Ghost of Kiev is like killing every single Russian plane. He's shooting every single Russian plane out of the sky. So I mean, what do you need more jets for when you got the Ghost?
Yeah, according to Western media, that's happening, right? Yeah, it's crazy. But I wanted to touch on something else you mentioned before I lost my train of thought. You mentioned something about before we were talking about the states. You asked me a question. What was your question? I'm drawing.
I mentioned like I said some of the other regions which were buffer states to the to the west. Some of those which because I'm drawing a blank. I'd have to pull it up right now on my phone.
I think it was before that we were talking
about.
What do
you have Slovakia.
Yes, that's one.
You have Hungary.
Okay, yeah. There we go. Yeah, Hungary.
Czech Republic too.
I'm not sure exactly when they got in, but I know those were some of the states which were at a time buffering states, especially back to like 91, which they weren't in NATO. Yeah.
But there was something else that you asked before that, and I was going to answer you, and then I said something I completely forgot.
I'm sorry, I got you distracted. Bad memory of mine. But I was along with that also. A lot of people are not factoring in just some of the things which Zelensky is pushed for. Like I've noticed that it's almost like a guy who he's been kind of fooling around with a girl, or you can switch the narrative, you switch the scenario either way. But somebody who's been kind of just leading somebody on. Oh yeah, I'm gonna leave my wife. I promise I'm gonna leave my wife. And then when it comes down to it, and they like move out of their house and drop everything, and then they show up at their front door like, hey, are you gonna leave them? And they're like, well, you know. It's a little bit more complicated than that, and that's what it kind of looks like with Zelensky. Zelensky really, I'm not gonna say Zelensky because I believe Zelensky's a puppet,
Mhm.
I believe that oligarch, which is behind him, and maybe groups of oligarchs behind him, all thought that, you know what, hey, the U.S. is ready, and the Western powers are all ready to actually go in, full on Russia, and they're all kind of getting left at the altar in a sense that
Yeah.
it's not happening.
Yeah. Like I think even Biden tweeted something out like, we're not going to start a war with Russia. Um But like the thing is, they're using Ukraine, right? They're weaponizing Ukraine for this proxy war with Russia. I've said it a million times. This isn't about Ukraine's independence. This isn't about the Ukrainian people. They don't give a crap about the Ukrainian people. Ukrainian people have been in dire economic straits for a long time. They've been paying ridiculous amounts for gas to stay warm. They've had food shortages. The country, that was part of it. The country was divided for a long time between these two groups, and the other element was that Donetsk and Luhansk, the people of there asked for their independence to be recognized. And then Russia recognized that independence. Finally, they recognized it because initially they didn't want to. And this whole thing about how this just happened out of nowhere is false, because the vast majority of people in the Donbass region voted for in 2014 for the more pro-Russian guy. Like it was not, something that was. And they also voted for for Crimea to be part of Russia.
Isn't that the stuff which kind of led to the Minsk Accord?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, that was kind of like the happy medium that they tried
Right.
to make, to say, okay, well, you guys aren't going to get your person who you want in power, but here's a middle ground. I mean, because I remember reading reports that plenty of people in the Donbass region were asking Putin to send in troops and invade because of what's been going on for the last 8 years, because the Azov battalion has been just being like a band of thugs running around the country.
That was a criticism that like
Mhm.
he didn't go in sooner.
Yes.
Like he should have gone in sooner before. Yeah.
Well, I noticed something else that you guys broke that I hope you can probably shed a little bit of light on.
Sure.
It was a French Ukrainian who was on French media, and she started telling them that you guys are kind of a little bit off. The Ukrainians have been bombing Ukrainians.
Yeah.
And granted, we all know it's multiple factions within Ukraine, but to try to ignore that and act like all the Ukrainians are on one accord and it's Ukraine versus Russia, and everybody just stand with Ukraine, it's kind of, in my opinion, ignoring all the people who are sympathetic to Russia and who feel oppressed by the current Ukrainian government. I mean, also you have a lot of people don't talk about when Zelensky went in and how he starts shutting down what was it, media that was contrary to him, or that opposed him in any way.
Yeah, so people keep saying like Russia has like censorship, mass censorship, and the thing is that lady was basically saying Zelensky is the one that was censoring people and that completely got rid of any opposition media. And that was also part of some of the things he was joking about during that comedy show as well. And so this is nothing new. Like I said before, Ukraine wasn't a democracy at that, like since 2014 they stopped being under like a democratic control. Because if you think about it, it's like our elections here. It's like if you're gonna say you live in a democracy and then that for example, Bernie Sanders was completely, pushed out of the election in an unfair way. I'm trying to mince my words here because I don't want to get into trouble. But, and like, so, and then you look back at like the coup that was obviously funded by the West. And how can you say that after you have a democracy when obviously you don't, because you don't have control of your own country? And so it's the same thing where that lady was saying, and obviously the pundits were like, oh my gosh, like they didn't know what to do with her, because everything she's saying is true, but you won't see in mainstream media. You have to go to Russian media, you have to go to Chinese media, You have to go to like places now that we can't even have access to because of the censorship. So like it's really crazy because when you watch the other like, you know, non-Western media, which you should watch, because why would you want to have an only
Oh, I think Fee froze there.
oh,
Go on
I'm
ahead.
back? Am I back or
Yeah, you're back.
okay. So for example, they were saying that that the Russians were keeping people from escaping in Mariupol and that wasn't true. There's actual video footage of them helping people get out of the city. It's actually the Azov fighters who literally shot people to keep them from going, who literally used civilians as human shields to like to you know to try to make it look like, oh, these Russians are killing civilians. And when you see the footage of that, you see very real footage. When you see the footage of, you know, look at what the Russians did and how they like went at these people at the school of children, blah blah blah, you don't see the footage. You just see like certain pictures and certain people that have been found to be actors. This is very similar to what happened in Syria during the Syrian chemical attacks when they were staging this sort of thing. And if you've ever listened to or read you know, Eva Bartlett or Vanessa Beeley's coverage on Syria, which they were the first people there and the first to get it right and don't get nearly enough credit as they should to for what they did, you can see how that was manufactured. Well, it's the same thing here. They're even manufacturing propaganda where they're like, well, if there was an attack by Russia and it were to happen, here is a video of the Eiffel Tower getting blown up. I mean, everything is to create this idea that the Russians are Hitler and that they're going to destroy Europe if NATO, the good guys, don't stop them. It's a very Captain America-esque type of fantasy that they're creating, and people are unfortunately buying into it.
Fiorella, I have a question for you. So we know most of the players, right?
Yeah.
How does this end? Does it end with Ukraine split? Does it end with occupation, like, you know, lifetime occupation of Ukraine by Russia or NATO forces? Where do you see this going?
So what's happening right now is actually hurting the West and us, obviously, as you guys can see, more than it is hurting Russia. I mean, it's going to hurt Russia. Sanctions always, you know, attack the working class. The fact that they're getting rid of anything like anything that has connections to America. I mean, they got rid of certain Google owned entities there, McDonald's, all these things like are going to affect the country no matter what. But Russia has a market that people in America don't even like count. Like they don't even think of the market. Like they have China in the east. They have the pipeline. They have, and with China, of course, comes the Belt and Road Initiative, which I mean, I'm not going to talk in depth about that because there are two sides to that, right? There's good and bad. But they also have a market in the global south as well, and Africa. And this isn't like Russia will be fine in terms of that because they know that these countries need their gas and their oil. Now, I don't see NATO and the US getting out of this with a win because it's just not going to happen. It's not happening right now. In fact, most of the troops have been defeated. The ones that are left are the neo-Nazi factions. So how does this end? I mean, nobody really knows, but what I can say is it either ends with them accepting Putin's denazification ask and the attempt to keep a neutral Ukraine, or what you said, I think the country would be split. But I have a hard time thinking Russia will even allow that. And the reason they won't allow that is because they already see what's happening with the biolabs, right? They already see that there is the anti-ballistic missiles
It's
on their
fake news,
border.
Fiorella. There's no biolabs there. Fake news.
Yeah, right. And so they already see that this is there, and they don't want they don't want that expansion. They understand that they right now at this moment they're gonna stand their ground, and I think that's what this is. I honestly believe, and I'm not a fan like of Putin, and I hate that I even have to say that But it's just like I can't tell you how many people think, you know, Russia is communist, because it's not. I can't tell you how many people think like Putin is some sort of tanky. You know, Putin is more on of a centrist, almost to the right, in terms of how he's governed. But it's interesting how people equate you to say, when I say something like, "Oh, Russia is trying to like end this conflict," they're like, "Oh, so you love Putin?" And it's like, no, like that's what's happening. That's just literally what's happening. They're putting their foot down and they're saying we're not going to allow this. Now, in terms of what is happening in the global agenda, in terms of that, it's going to be interesting to see, because you know, like that's a whole other element to this whole conflict. And I don't see a way that the United States is going to come out winning as they're making it out to be, but they're trying. This is their Afghanistan. Again, this is another Afghanistan type of conflict, in my opinion, because you see like the how wasteful it is, and how it's being portrayed. And the same people that were, you know, the same media that completely bought the whole weapons of mass destruction back then is the same media that's here, but now they have obviously technology on their side. They have social media platforms to continue censoring people. And what's happening now is propaganda like I've never seen before. It's even exceeded the propaganda from COVID, to be honest. Like
Yeah.
I didn't think it would, but when you see people on the quote unquote left cheerleading not neo-Nazis, or whitewashing the legacy of Hitler, and trying to say that Putin is Hitler, you know, it's insane to me, the level of brainwashing and psyop. And this has not happened overnight. I mean, it's happened really fast in terms of Russia, but obviously there's been the preconditioning with every single event that's happened. And the question is, what's the next thing? Right. And
hmm
we can look to the conversation between Victoria Nuland and Marco Rubio as to, well, if there were to be a release of these bioweapons, then it's certainly Russia's fault, right? And she's like, yeah, of
Oh, it's
course.
all on Russia. It's only them.
Well, I mean, I find that interesting because it seems like basically since the pandemic, everything has been only one side. Actually, if I really think about it, you can take it back to the election. Either you're a Biden supporter or you're a Trump supporter, and you had to be put in one category or the other. After that went on, then is you're either a Republican or a right winger, and you're anti-vaxxer and all this stuff like that, or you're the Democrats and we're the party of science. And then it's Ukraine. Either you're for Ukraine or you're a Nazi Putin sympathizer. And it seems like everything is getting forced hard into these hard lines,
Yeah.
where you have to be one or the other. Like I think a lot of and that was something you brought up interesting about the schools. They're showing a lot of images, and I actually, because I work with a normie Dim who's one of those who has a very, very hard opinion and pushes everything. Yes, exactly. Um, has a very hard opinion on everything and just doesn't want to listen to anything. Like I was telling him, I'm like, you do realize that there are neo-Nazis in Ukraine, and he's like, I don't even want to hear it. I don't want to hear nothing that you got to show me. And I'm like, I was going to show you NBC and CNN, the people you listen to saying it and admitting it, not just some kind of random independent, which you would think, oh, well, they don't know anything. I was going to show him actual mainstream sources which say this. This isn't just something we're pulling, out of the atmosphere and making up.
Right.
And then he finally started saying something which he was like, well, wait a minute. They're bombing schools. Well, why are they still in school? And I was like, there you go. Now you're starting to think just a tad bit. Why would you still be in school if they're running bombing raids over your town? That doesn't make any sense. They're saying, oh, well, they bombed this hospital. Well, is anybody in the hospital? Yeah. And then I told him, I said, being a former weapons guy, one thing I can tell you is munitions go off. Sometimes they don't hit the intended target. That's one thing that also can happen. So some of these attacks, and the media can frame it however they want to. And then another thing is sometimes intel is not entirely correct. Sometimes you're told this building is X, and when a plane is flying over at 10,000 feet, they can't necessarily look and see a hospital sign on the front of it. So, I mean, that's something that always has to be factored in. Chris, you were saying about the narrative about. I want people to think about it, because you brought this up, Fiorella, when you said about about Eurasia and that side. I don't think a lot of people factor in, just because the West is so-called trying to stop Russia and cut off their funds in every different, well, not every different way. They're still letting the gas and natural gases go, because if they did do that, Russia could easily say, you know what, we're going to shut off natural gas and oil to all of Europe and just literally start freezing them out. And I don't think people realize, like, countries like Germany are like 70% dependent on Russian natural gas and oil. Italy is like 40%. France is like somewhere around 40 to 50%. Like, a lot of these countries across Europe are dependent on this. So once they do that, it's almost kind of strangling themselves. And then nobody factors in, they still have the markets, and Russia still has markets into the Asian front, into China. They have deals with North Korea, even though North Korea doesn't have very much. They still have that. They still have some of the outposts which they have in Africa, in the global south. When you start talking about like Venezuela and some of those other countries, you start thinking about UAE. They have partnerships there. Syria, Libya. They have partnerships all around the world. With, I would say, probably close to 2/3 of the rest of the world outside of of the Western Front. And so I think that that's often missed by a lot of people. I was wondering, like, more on the what do you think is going to happen as far as have you heard about the whole Chernobyl stuff? Because I keep hearing a lot of talks and worried about what's going on with the seizing of Chernobyl.
So in according to the Russian Defense Ministry, it's Ukrainians that have been bombing the Chernobyl area. So you see that being said if you watch Russian media versus what's being said, oh, the Russians are trying to bomb it. Why would the Russians try to, like, bomb an area that would, it doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. It just logistically,
it would have an effect. It would affect them just the same.
right.
Right. That's why it's
So,
retarded. No, you
yeah.
can't say that. It's stupid.
But just going off of what you said about, Russia having other markets, that's 100% true. And if you look at, like, the desperation of the United States, you really get more of a sense of what's really happening here. They went to Iran and to Venezuela to play nice and diplomatic, to ask, for oil, to ask for a good exchange, to ask them to be on their side. But the Venezuelan diplomats and large powerful people in the Venezuelan government have consistently said that the United States and NATO are the culprits here, and that they stand by Russia. And a lot of people underestimate how much support Russia has in the global south, not just but from these, more socialist leaning nations like Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, but also from, like, in general, like India even. That market isn't going to go away for them at all.
Yeah, I forgot to mention India. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah.
Isn't it, speaking of Venezuela, I thought it was kind of interesting. They told us Guaido was president, but you asked for a meeting with Maduro for the oil.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of confused, because you told me for years that Guaido was.
You haven't heard, Chris? They're now officially recognizing Maduro as president now.
Yeah. And
I mean, late to the party. I just wonder all of the other countries who quickly came out and recognized Guaido, if they're too going to follow the United States again and, go back to recognizing Maduro. All of it is stupid. I mean, that's a great example to look at the situation with Maduro and Guaido, to look at the media, look at the situation and look at the media, look what they told you. Now something happens, and now we can see what the reality actually is. Obviously not to anyone in the chat or in this or on this show right now. We clearly know that. The problem is getting that information, getting that thought process out to maybe some of our family members and friends. Like, guys, just open your goddamn eyes and ears. Maybe you should listen to us sometimes, right?
It's
We're not just
difficult.
crazy.
I have to say it's difficult. I argue with my dad all the time about this, because he spews propaganda to me, and it's interesting. I think a lot of part of it is the entire the cognitive dissonance of it all, because things are very, very bleak here in the United States, and then they're going to get really bad. It's going to get really bad. Gas prices in LA right now are about $7, between $6 and $7. They're going up every single day. And that's not just from Russia. That's something that was coming a long time ago. That's definitely not, this is something that they're using to blame Russia, to get people to blame Russia. But I think ultimately what's going to happen is Americans don't realize things until it hurts their pockets, right? Until they're directly affected. And other countries that have been affected by Western imperialism, they have no option but to recognize what's happening, because they live it every single day. But now this is going to hit their pockets, and I think that is something where I think some people are going to start realizing, wait a minute now, because it's taking how much to fill up my gas tank. And also truckers that have been already protesting against the mandates are now saying, we're not going to be able to deliver these goods and services to people because we can't afford to fill up our gas tank. It costs one trucker, I think, in a video that I saw, $1,000 to fill up a gas tank. And in places where, like in the south of this country, where Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Florida, where the minimum wage is still like $7.50 or something ridiculous.
Don't forget Midwest.
Yeah, in the Midwest, where people don't the minimum wage is low, they're not making all this money, and now somehow gas is like half of your hourly wage. And then you have, of course, all the media, or the elitist liberals, right? Oh, you're only a Trump supporter if you can't afford to pay gas. Or I saw somebody on Facebook share a meme today that's like, if you spend $5 on a beer, don't complain about gas prices. It's like, you don't have to buy 20 gallons worth, 20 beers. Like you don't do this every day to get to work. And the poorest people are the ones that live often further from their jobs. Example, Disney workers, people that have to drive long distances to actually go to work. And so I think maybe it is my hope that will wake up some Americans.
I want you to expound that, because I live out here also, and a lot of people don't realize Disney is in Orange County. A lot of these people who work there work in LA County. And so some of them are having commutes and drives before this, easily like 45 minutes to an hour. Just a regular drive. And so if you're barely making, over the state's minimum wage here, and then your gas prices are getting hiked through the roof, and you're having to make that long commute every day, it's eating you up. The same with like Knott's Berry Farm also.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, years ago when Bernie Sanders was running the second time, he went to actually do something good at that time, which was expose how little Disney workers were getting paid. And he went to the Anaheim Center, and he had all these Disney people there. And if you hear their stories, so many of them lived in their cars. So many of them were homeless. And I think that Disney did actually give a higher wage, but in California,
after the Disney daughter, was it granddaughter, whatever, after she came out and bitched about it on TV, and then they decided to do it.
But everything's gone up since then. Everything, the cost of milk, the cost of bread, and if you look at wheat, and if you look at how that's going to be affected, it's going to get really, really bad. And I don't think people realize how bad it's going to get. And we're not really prepared for it here. And also there was just the quote unquote pandemic that happened. And so people were already suffering. And I know California just cut off paying people's rent. I think this was the last month that they were going to do it. So you have people that haven't caught up, because it's impossible to catch up, and they're in a lot of trouble. And we've already seen that townhouse crisis here in both Orange County, but a lot in LA County, that's out of control. That there's, so much poverty that I haven't seen this much. And by the way, the gas prices have surpassed the 2008 prices. So
yeah, Germality put what $8. You remember in the 90s when they were $8. I've already seen, places like Hollywood have already overpassed that, and it's going to keep going up. And it's a great point you bring up about how the gas prices are eventually going to start affecting the inflation more and more. And we're talking about inflation, we're not talking about the government overall inflation. We're talking about in your pocketbook, real-time inflation. When you walk into a store and try to buy milk and food and all those different things, we're going to start seeing it in those areas also. We're going to start seeing it not only at the gas pump. We're going to start seeing it across the board. And I really think that's when maybe more Americans will start realizing that maybe this isn't such a smart idea. But at that point, I think it's going to be one of those, we've kind of dug ourselves, well, not we, but the nation has dug itself kind of into a hole. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, no, I was going to say, Variant was showing me a clip earlier of Colbert, right? And he's like, oh, I don't mind paying extra dollars at the pump if it helps stick it to Russia, more or less. I'm paraphrasing. And I drive a Tesla. So,
well, and George Takei said it also.
The people who can't afford Teslas and who cannot afford who cannot afford the increase in all these prices for all these items that we do need, they're watching people like Colbert and saying, yeah, you know what, I don't mind. It really is The Walking Dead, man. And there's no other way to put it.
We got to remember, what is the viewing audience for CNN age demographic and MSNBC? We're dealing with mostly our parents or people our parents' age who already have their houses, already most of the time have their cars, have been working in the job 20, 30 years and have higher incomes, and they can afford that. And they don't think about what it's like to be somebody who maybe you're 18 just starting out, or 19, like Jalen, my co-host on another show, or in your 20s or in your 30s or in your 40s, and you haven't started making those increases that they made at that time because the jobs are not paying these higher wages. I mean, I don't think a lot of that's factored in.
Well, Marcus, even to the extent that, you make a decent salary, whatever raise you may get with the inflation, the rise in the cost of all this stuff, it negates your raise almost. So in some cases, it's like you may even be making less when you really, crunch the numbers. So something has to be done.
You are. I mean, I've already, they have the inflation calculators where you can literally just put it in a year and be able to see, like, if it was keeping up with inflation, the average, just average person would be making somewhere around $40 an hour, which the average person makes somewhere around like $12 an hour, something like that. So it shows you it's not keeping up.
Yeah, there are people that are going back to jobs they did a long time ago, and they were making more money a long time ago than they would be making now. And that's just one aspect of it. I mean, this whole thing is a lot more really like just evil than what it seems. If you look at what the liberals are talking about, and when I say that, I mean the shit libs and everything from the progressives to they're using this opportunity to push things like the Green New Deal, which we know is a plan for it's part of the whole Great Reset, right? And this is and that is the whole idea. It's like, well, guys, it's time to invest in fossil fuel alternatives. Well, obviously, it's been a long time to do that. Like this has been a need for a long time now, but you have to be careful with how much that even investing in those alternatives is going to cost, also energy wise, and who are you going to exploit to also do that? And you can't just do that without having like a plan as to like how you're going to transition, and they know this. So a lot of it is just virtue signaling, but also it's to weaponize this whole idea too, I think, of, well, maybe people shouldn't be driving. Maybe people should stay at home and work from home. Gee, that happens to be beneficial right now. If you're staying at home and you don't have to drive, guess who benefits? Oh, you do. But is that really something that a lot of people want to be doing? And this is
or can do.
Been primed. Yes, because the vast majority of people that can do that are people that work in, the banking industry, the laptop class, so to speak. And like, of course, like there's not, I mean, sure, I'm not trying to shit on those people, obviously, but at the same time, it only benefits a certain group of people.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of people don't fall within those parameters. And so somebody's got to get exploited. And I think they're going to weaponize this whole, well, we need to shift to other things because oil is expensive, to push these political agendas, but they're very privileged agendas because people still need to drive and people can't afford Teslas and electric cars. The most people that I know who have those, I mean, you can get a hybrid for a good price, but you still have to get gas with a hybrid. But most people that I know that can afford electric cars make a lot of money or are okay. And so when you say things like that without taking into account how poor people just can't afford that, and it's just very elitist, and it's just political points to try to pass more of this legislation that's going to make people dependent on whatever the government is offering at that time. And it's not something that is this whole idealistic view of, oh, this is what we wanted the government to give us all things. No, they're not going to give it to you unless they put oh, you must agree to this XYZ. You must agree to letting us come into your life and censoring anything that dispels our narrative. If you want healthcare, perhaps they're going to be like, you must abide by our healthcare rules. So it's no
I think that's what's coming. Oh yeah, I think that's definitely coming.
Marcus, you've heard me say many a time on this show. That's why that Medicare for all the people screaming that, they don't even know what they're asking for. You better be careful.
And that's why I say be careful.
You might get what you want, and you probably won't like it. So I tell everybody they got to chill. But going back to talking.
Well, that's the issue. I just want to say this real quick, and I'll give it back to you, Chris. That's the thing. Medicare for all overall is a good idea, but you got to be careful who's instituting this,
right?
And what they want back in return. But go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, in addition to gas and groceries, people's rents are increasing ridiculous amounts. I mean, hundreds of dollars, for renewals. To move, you have to pay what first? If you're renting, right? You have to pay first, last, maybe security in some cases, depending on where you are. So you're going to have to come up with thousands of dollars to have to leave a place where you are that you maybe can no longer afford, to downgrade, to pay, just a little bit less than where you are. And it's just eating everything up. So along with the push for going back to Fiorella's comment about the Green New Deal, right? This is also going to bring on UBI, right? They're going to have people begging the government. So it seems like every single thing they do, they have the solution right there. They just need to make you struggle a little bit. So then you actually beg them for what they want to give you anyway. It's a nasty game. I just need more of us to, I would say wake up, but they already are woke and they need to go back to sleep.
Well,
they're woke, not awake.
Yeah, exactly. That it's been weaponized for this, culture war, virtue signaling. But the other aspect of it is crypto too, and what Biden's about to sign, where they're going to have full control of eventually every single crypto thing. And a lot of people said, no, that's never going to happen. No, it's happening. And I think a lot of people who are working people, including including ourselves via the Rockfin platform, we get paid via crypto, and we have surviving because YouTube demonetized us, obviously. So on some of that, and like we're obviously funded by the people. And so like when they take that avenue, who's it going to hurt the most? It's not going to hurt the big whales who have a lot of money and are able to move it around. It's not going to hurt the people who have financial advisors and can like figure out what's going on. It's going to hurt any sort of working class person that has used these currencies to try to like save some money and go around what's happening with the fiat currency, because that's going to go down too. And so what we're going to see is also, we've seen it already, is people in sanctioned countries who have been using crypto to go around sanctions, they're also under attack. And I know people in Venezuela have done this much. And and who knows what like how that's going to go around now. And it's very scary times, because it's hard to say where people should really invest. But I would say, on like I've said it before, on people learning to grow their own food, or at least stocking up. Obviously within reason, don't rob everybody off of everything, but like it's just hard to put all of your eggs in one basket. You don't want to do that because there's so much uncertainty with what's happening.
Well, yeah, that's something that I'm glad you brought up. It's been what, about 10 months that you guys have been demonetized.
Yeah.
And that made me think about, well, that's just another form of censorship what they're doing, because they're trying to do it, okay, a soft way of forcing you guys to play nice. And so that's kind of what that alludes on to the panel which you had last night, because especially I know Rachel Blevins, for instance, and then I know which I'll have I'm trying to remember Tara Reid on next week, where she's going through that also. And then I just noticed I was literally watching what's his name, Lee Camp, a video that he had with Scott Ritter. And Scott Ritter was calling out a lot of things earlier. And that video, I watched it like 2 days ago, tried to go back to it, watch it again. It says, this video is not allowed in your country.
Right.
So I'm like, whoa. I mean, now it's gotten to the point where even the US is completely censoring anybody from RT. And if people say, oh, well, it doesn't matter, it's RT. They just, and I know some people don't like Rising or The Hill, but they did that to them also. They got, a week ban. And so if they're doing it to those outlets, and I like people to think, that's the reason why I know you guys were on this same point also about the whole banning Trump from Twitter. If they start banning Trump from Twitter, then how long is it before they come back and start banning all of us? Because Chris said this last week, how they start off with the Alex Joneses and people like that. And then it always works its way back around to us, and normally hits us worse in the long run than it does the other side.
I would go further. I would say the Alex Joneses are there to sort of introduce this idea, because if you look at what Alex Jones said, he said a lot of truths within a lot of lies, and that is just the same thing as QAnon. It's like the purpose of that is to make any sort of criticism of the government some sort of right-wing conspiracy theory, and that is intelligence very much at work to discount any sort of counter narrative by tying certain pieces of that counter narrative with figures like Alex Jones and like QAnon and so on. And so what started then was, okay, well, since we don't like the guy and he's not somebody that people like, it's so easy, let's censor him. And then on Trump, we don't like the guy, let's censor him. It doesn't matter if he's the president of the United States. And then it became, oh, let's censor all the right wingers because they're a bunch of lunatics and Trump supporters and Nazis and all this stuff, and so on, to where, we were saying this for a long time. And I think, a lot of people didn't think it could happen to them. And I look at people like Brian Grimm, and I'm like, hello, like you like, this has been happening to a lot of us for a long time. Welcome to our world. Now you have to deal with what we've been saying and screaming about for years. And I mean, I'm not cheering for the censorship, but it's almost like when somebody that has been, sort of like not as like, pro censorship necessarily, but under like, kind of under the radar, like not okay with it, because they especially with the January 6th stuff, when Pasta and I were covering elections, so many of these people were like, status quo or status coup, we're calling for the election for us to get taken down, and then they kept getting censored thereafter. So it doesn't matter if you play ball. And even a lot of people who have been in independent media who have kind of fenced that, right, and not covered COVID the way it should have been covered, not covered the Great Reset the way it should have been covered, not challenged those narratives and the globalist agenda to avoid being called right wingers, to avoid being called these sort of, ooh, like this is just a fringe left or whatever. Like, it's like, okay, well, I lose respect a little bit, or a lot, because then you're fence sitting, and I don't like fence sitters, because you have to take not necessarily a side, but a stance, knowing and understanding the information. And if you're just going to play it safe, then that tells me that you do have, you're easier to convince. And so what I've been seeing in independent media is like a lot of people who were very wrong on the COVID narrative, who didn't speak out, not really understanding like how that's so intrinsically tied to what's happening right now with Ukraine and Russia. It is the same type of propaganda, the same type of slogans. The only difference is now it's about Russians instead of anti-vaxxers. You talk about misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. That's all in the Department of Homeland Security's little bulletin they released not long ago. It's the same.
Yeah, it's part of the playbook.
The same thing.
I mean, it's the same thing like where you guys covered the trucker strike. It's the same thing. You know, one side is put on the other, and the crazy part about it is it was mostly the so-called left who were the biggest split.
Yeah,
and I feel like honestly, now that you mention of it, I honestly think it's almost a ploy to really hit back at the Democrats' left flank to shut them off. Because if you go back to what the Clintons called it, counter scheduling, where they would always punch to their left flank, and so it almost seems like this censorship is about shutting down that aspect, because they know we can get most of the Republicans on our side eventually, and those ones who don't, everybody thinks they're crazy and racist anyway, so let's just ignore them.
And this is an election year too, right? So we have the midterms that later on this year. So you can bet everything you got that it's going to get worse as we get closer to the election. I mean,
well, that's remember earlier I said this probably maybe 6 or 7 months ago. As soon as the new year happens, no matter what's going on with COVID, all the mandates are going to start dropping, because they've been getting, beat up in the polls on this, even though they keep lying about the polls, because you look at these margin of errors. Now they went to 6 to 7 point margin of errors because they're skewing the polls. They know how bad this stuff is. They just can't release how unpopular some of the things they're doing. And so they got to start trying to reel things back to try to get back some of those voters who are upset with them for some of these mandates and different measures that they've been pushing. I was wondering, back to the Victoria Nuland situation. What do you think is going to happen with that? Do you think that we are going to have some kind of possible, or I guess I'll rephrase it. What's the possibility that we have some kind of, as what Ned Price said, false flag attack that happens, these biolabs?
Yeah, I mean, if anything, it's going to be obviously blamed on Russia, and we know who the false flag doers are going to be. They've told us. The thing is, these people tell us everything that they're going to do. You just have to listen for it, and I do think it's extremely possible, especially if you look at was discovered in those documents, according to the Russian ministry, which it was like viruses on bats and anthrax and all sorts of plagues and birds, different types of avian flu and all of the stuff that was discovered. And I'm still looking into it even more, and I want to have this person on who did a lot of research on it. She's from the region, but it's kind of crazy because you cannot separate what exactly for this reason, which what's going on in Russia and Ukraine and what's happening, what happened with the pandemic. And I think there's definitely more to this than the State Department wants us to know, because immediately Jen Psaki got on Twitter denying everything. Well, Victoria Nuland basically admitted it, but shifted the conversation to, but this is about Russia having access, and we need to be careful with what Russia may release and all that. That was the only pivot they could do, because that's what they have to get the public to focus on. Oh, Russia's gonna have some sort of bio weapon attack, but the thing is, we've seen this before. We've been here before. It's not exactly the same, but it rhymes, right? And so now we're in this situation where a lot of us are recognizing it, but we have to be careful with the intelligence community going after younger people who weren't around for 9/11, who weren't around for the war in Iraq. I mean, my sister
they're just bringing them
around that age, and they don't know anything because they were born after the fact. They were so young.
Correct, but they're bringing them into the fold. I mean, I think you guys saw it yesterday, maybe on Twitter. What the White House is bringing the top TikTok users to brief them on the situation with Russia and Ukraine. I mean, just think about. I mean, I don't have TikTok. I I have a kid who does, right?
Mhm.
I can't think of like any top TikTok user who's not geared towards like some stupid shit, right?
Right.
Cooking, dancing, you know, trying on clothes, makeup, what have you. So these are the people who they're going to get to basically um, pass the propaganda on to the generation under us, maybe 2 generations under us. Um, so they're gonna come up all crazy too. So you constantly, I mean, I hate to use his word, but it really is an info war out here, and you know, you
Yeah.
really have to be prepared to fight it on every single level. Doesn't matter, even if you're not into politics, you're not into news, you're only into sports. Well, you know, they used the Brittany Griner situation to bring to, you know, paint Russia as a bad guy with that situation. I still don't know
Yep.
what's going on with that, but Marcus, I tell you,
Oh, we'll get into it a little bit later.
I still feel real funny about that situation. I mean, she was leaving, from what I understood, she was leaving New York. You know, you're allowed to have your bud there. You know, it's cool. And she got caught there. But there's something about that that's real funny to me, because it's like at this point in time, why would you even keep weed in your bag and you're going to Russia? So I don't know. We'll see as that plays out. But again, at the end of the day, it still helps the narrative along, right? Russia bad.
Mhm.
Look, they're taking
Yeah.
one of our athletes and entertainers and a black, and she's gay. I mean, so
Yeah.
they're just
Yeah,
hitting
we'll,
all the
we'll get
demographics for
into
her.
it. I'll give you some of my thoughts on it. I wanted to tell you, Fee, I really like that interview you had with Alex Rubinstein. Also, it was very, very enlightening, because a lot of people just assume that every Jewish person is on board with Zelensky and everything that's going on with Ukraine. And so I just wanted to make sure to mention that. I was
Alex is
wondering.
I just want to add, Alex's family is from the region too, and I didn't
Mm.
even know that until he like divulged the information like a few generations back. But that's also why it was such a big deal to him as well.
Yeah, I have one thing that's been kind of floating in the back of my mind, and since I haven't saw you guys start talking about this yet, which I know you will, but I was wondering, what are your thoughts as far as China, Ukraine, not Ukraine, but China, India, and Russia are really close together, and I've even seen Turkey making a lot of movements also. I'm wondering. Are we about to see the same thing kind of play out again, what we're seeing right now with Russia and Ukraine, with China and Taiwan?
I don't know. I mean, I thought that it's interesting with China and Taiwan because like are you talking in terms of like the China and Taiwan coming at each other, right? That's what you're talking
Well,
about?
yeah, I'm talking about the possibility of China invading Taiwan.
Well, the thing like I have a hard time thinking that China would invade Taiwan, but the thing is, a large segment of the, the like global South recognizes China over Taiwan.
Mhm.
And I was just in Nicaragua where they're still going to keep having like diplomacy with, Taiwan, but they shifted from Taiwan to China. And there are many arguments for or against that, right? There are many arguments like as to who like what is legitimate and what isn't, but I mean according to a lot of people, Taiwan, it was just is weaponized once again by the West to try to sow division and to try to gain control of the region. It's the same thing. So it's just kind of difficult to say if that's going to continue happening. I mean, I think the US is going to weaponize whatever they can, but I don't think they're going to mess with China as much. And the reason I think they're not is because you can see like their cries right now for relevancy, like in terms of having this unilateral power. And you can see that the United States and the West are losing that unilateral power. You can see that the empire is in decay right now because they are no longer the
The
one sole
hegemony.
powerful nation. Yeah, I mean it's still a hegemony, but it's not necessarily like they're not as powerful as they were before, in spite of the 900 military bases and all of the
Mhm.
stuff. And the reason is because we're an import nation, right?
Yep.
We import everything. We don't have self-sufficiency. Well, what's happened is that a lot of the countries that they've been sanctioning have developed a sort of self-sufficiency.
Mhm.
Russia has been preparing itself for a long time for these sanctions, as Nicaragua did. Like, as I've done, interviewed several people there talking about how they have this agricultural focus on growing their own food, on being self-sufficient, where 90% of the food that is in the country comes from the country itself. They really have very little imports going on, but they're largely self-sufficient. Same with Cuba, that in terms of the medical industry there, they had to pretty much do what they could to survive. And so those sanctions caused these nations to develop a sort of self-sufficiency. And so we don't have that at all. We also have people that are highly unaware of how that works in this country. And so what I think is happening is, and I've said this before, I think we're shifting to a multipolar world. Now, is it really going to be a multipolar world? Or is that multipolar world actually going to fight against the global agenda? Or is that multipolar world just another distraction that's actually eventually going to be still a part of that global agenda? That is like, the further question, if you're thinking about it in terms of that.
Oh, yeah.
But there's definitely a shift in terms of the power structure, right? From the United States to, obviously, now China is a major player in this. And that's something that's why you're seeing like the xenophobia with Russia and China. Now you're seeing it because now they're saying, oh, well, China is now weaponizing the biolabs in Ukraine because it helps their narrative that they had nothing to do with COVID. So you're seeing that, especially geared toward the right, because the right, a lot of them see China as like, the worst thing in the world. And obviously there's fair criticisms to China, but like, that's weaponized as well as it is for the left in Russia, which obviously took a huge start with Russia via Russiagate and all of that. So all of that's coming to fruition. And I think they're going to weaponize both to try to sow some sort of last attempt to remain at high control of these regions. But I don't think it's going to work, to be honest.
Yeah, that's the reason why I brought that up, because that's kind of what I see overall looks like happening, is that the US, the blood is kind of in the water, that they're a little weak, and nations which have been rising have been deciding that they are going to, start testing and seeing how weak is America right now. And if you think about it, what Venezuela, you see that coup attempt already didn't fail, where normally throughout the global south they were able to put through those agendas, especially going back to Iran Contra and going into all of those different things that they were able to do. Some of the influence that they've been able to do into North Africa in the past. Now we're starting to see more and more and more the stuff which the CIA has been putting into play is falling apart. We look at Bolivia. They put their little puppet leader in there, then boom, that's already fell apart. And some of the same things which they've been doing in North Africa with a lot of these different leaders that they've been putting into power. More and more and more, it looks like the U.S. is kind of losing influence everywhere. And so that's why I'm wondering that, China and Russia being the, I guess we'll say number 2 and number 3 superpowers in the world, are saying, hey, now's the time that they're weaker. They've been kind of testing their might, pushing across, into our territory. Now they're not as strong and we don't have to take this anymore. So we're going to kind of push back a little.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that assessment. And, that starts with the fact that we're so reliant on everybody else. And that's why we have, why we can get things cheaper here, because we depend on all these imports. And for example, if you like even something as simple as like clothes, in Latin America and in Peru and in certain countries like even Nicaragua or Honduras, some clothing costs more there than it costs here, because here we can get it from sweatshops, from Southeast Asia, and it costs us very little to do that. So I think Americans are going to see their way of life suddenly change. And of course, this comparison always happens, but I think it's definitely accurate. I mean, at least in the general sense, this is Rome falling apart, and unfortunately, we have to, as Americans, prep for that because it's largely, these rich men go to fight wars and they put poor people to fight them, but they never get any sort of we never see any justice come from it. We continue seeing these same players and warmongers. Victoria Nuland should have nothing to do with government right now, yet she's the Deputy Secretary of State right now. So it's the same players. I mean, what's his name, William Burns, who was involved for a long time, is now the CIA director, and even he knew about Russia's red lines. So it's the same people in power, the same. It doesn't matter. And you guys mentioned the elections. Well, the elections are going to be weaponized too, to sort of create this whole dynamic of, I think, the country needs to unite, blah blah blah. But it's not going to be a real sort of unity, because if we haven't noticed, a lot of the Republicans, the neocons, have been playing ball with this anti-Russia rhetoric, just as the liberals
And
have. So there's that unity.
Look, I'm glad you mentioned the neocons. They were brought in the fold a long time ago because most of them really didn't like Donald Trump personally, but they were all on his dick when he decided to push a button and drop a bomb in Afghanistan, escalate matters in Syria. He paid no attention to what they were doing in Africa, et cetera, et cetera. So they've been part of the fold and infecting shitlibs' minds for like the last couple years. I mean, just look at the whole Lincoln Project, right? That's all neocons, and all I saw, like at least online, the people most supporting them were friggin' Democratic voters. So it didn't even make any sense. So, like you said, this election, they're going to take everything they did with COVID and now what they're doing with Russia, and again, they're going to put it on steroids. If you aren't like pro-America, Russia, then you need to be kicked off the internet, period. So it's going to be very interesting going forward. We're going to see a lot of change coming. People are going to shift, but I just hope they stay the hell away from me, man. I can't deal with these people.
It's hard. Yeah.
Well, I said I didn't want to keep you too long. I know you got stuff going on, and I know you're a busy woman, and I appreciate the time which you were able to spend with us. And I definitely do want to have you back, hopefully sometime soon, to talk issues about the global South, because I do not feel they get talked about enough. And me and Chris, we're definitely passionate about a lot of the issues which go on in South America and Caribbean also. And so we definitely want to talk about that. I'll probably get a panel, hopefully get you on here. Maybe was it Blue Moon, Red Wine, a couple of our other friends out there, Atris, and, talk about some of these things. I was wondering, would you like to plug anything that you have coming up? Any shows, any guests that we should keep our eyes out for?
I have to share an article that I just did, where
Sure.
I compared the elections in Nicaragua to Costa Rica, because Costa Rica is a huge partner of the United States. They're pretty much, one of my friends called it the poorest nation in Europe, because so many, it's where, there's a lot of like US sort of privatization going on, and it's obviously always propped up in comparison to Nicaragua. And there's an election coming up where none of the candidates are great at all whatsoever, but there's obviously one worse than the other. And so I was just comparing those elections in terms of also in terms of the history and how so different it is. So I'll be sharing that on my Twitter, but also we're just going to continue covering everything that's going on in Russia and Ukraine. We've had a lot of people on to talk about it, and we're just going to continue staying on top of it, as well as the biolab situation, because that is extremely interesting layer of everything that's happening as well. And also obviously the global agenda perspective as to how that plays into what's going on and what the next thing that is going to be the new thing people hate is going to be once this whole thing happens, and how like the mandate situation is going to be still weaponized, I think, because now everything has been laid out and set. And so now it's going to be easier to get people to comply to certain things. So we'll really see what's going on. And thank you guys for having me. I really want to say about censorship is really at an all-time high. So make sure you diversify your content, and not put it all in on YouTube, put it all, put it in different avenues. There are even places like Rumble that have been censoring people too. Telegram censored RT's channel. These places that are supposed to be like free and open. DuckDuckGo has been doing the same.
Oh,
so,
we're gonna talk about that too.
Yeah. So do that. Don't just put all of your eggs in one basket, whether it's finances or whether it's your content. So yeah, and also continue speaking out against censorship. There's a reason why we have people like Julian Assange that have been jailed and continue to be jailed, and this is why. And just pay attention to the people that are getting censored, why they're getting censored, and understand that there's a reason for that. So thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it.
You're very, very welcome. So glad to have you here.
And Fiorella.
Hopefully this will be this will lead to more and more opportunity, I guess, more and more of seeing you on here, and
of course,
more I guess, what do we call it, collaboration. Yes, so definitely want to see more of that. I mean, thank you so much for being on again. We're definitely going to keep talking about that, about those issues. And I guess since you mentioned not putting our eggs all in one basket, I'm just trying to work it out myself, because I'm the person who deals with a lot of the stuff. So and I'm not the most tech savvy person there is, but we will be going on to what is that, Odyssey.
Yeah,
we'll be figuring out. So on Odyssey, we might even do kind of what you guys do, how you'll have some of it for YouTube, and then some of it has to be, strictly like Rockfin content. Yeah. We're going to start doing some of that so that we can get deeper into some of these issues, which we get in trouble for a lot because we have gotten quite a bit of strikes over really? Time. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, the channel was almost gone not that long ago. Wow. Yeah, so that's a whole nother subject which we will not hash into. But
yeah, we've had videos like, we'll do one, now, normally we would come on later. Then in the morning I get up, I'm on the East Coast. I wake up 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. I go back to look at the show. That shit gone.
Wow.
This happened to us a couple times. Yeah. And I mean, we're just a small little channel, nothing like compared to you guys, or even like Slow News Day or anything like that. So if it's happening to us, clearly, if they don't shadow ban you, they don't ban you, they demonetize you. So they have like a million ways, like, just to keep
Chris,
sticking that needle in you.
Don't forget, they've literally cut our views in half on videos.
Oh yeah, they've done that to us too. I know exactly what you're talking about. I'll look at it and then it'll go backwards. I'm like, that's impossible. Or we
start screenshotting it.
Yeah, it's crazy. People think we're making it up. I'm like, no, it's real. And other people have said, oh, they unsubscribed me from you, and all the things. It happens. It happens, and that's why I say put your content somewhere else, and eventually maybe you'll get onto Rockfin, but there's there's a lot of that happening right now, unfortunately. So keep going. Thank you for doing what you do. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, we're big fans of you over here. So I mean, definitely support Convo Couch, and we love everybody over at the MCSC network. So shout out to everybody over there, Franco, Misty, all of you guys over there, Nico. Much love to everybody over there.
All right, guys. Much love. See you later.
All right. See you later. All right. Hey, everybody. I guess I wanted to. I noticed Uncle Warren asked a question, if he's still in here. He asked, "Where is Emanuel?" Emanuel, after last show, he told me that he just doesn't he's lost the love for it, and I was meaning to either do a short video or post about it, but to be honest, after 2.5 years, it's a little hard to see our buddy leave. So it's been a little while to announce the news, but yes, Emanuel has left the show. He said he's just getting out of politics as a whole. He doesn't want to do it really anymore, not on a show, but he'll probably be still on Twitter, so you guys can still find him there, so yeah, Emanuel's gone. But I guess Chris, kind of rough segue, but the DuckDuckGo thing, because I noticed you tweeted about it. So yeah, Germality says makes sense. All of this is maddening. Yeah, I mean, it takes a toll. I mean, sometimes we have to, like, I have to say, you know, let me go just do something else for a while, so all this stuff doesn't get to me too much. Especially when you're scouring all this different news and all this information, and it weighs on you. Some of the stuff which you guys don't even know, half the stories which I run across, which I don't even talk about on here because just haven't had the time to, or not able to condense it into the show. But Chris, what's some of your thoughts? And
No,
I guess let them know, because Chris was there too. Your thoughts
about
on E leaving? Yeah.
Oh, even my dog. Look, we have been talking to E. This is not the first time he said that. He just actually went through with it this time, because last year E told us, like, hey guys, like, I'm gonna step away. I'm not gonna do this anymore. Blah blah blah. But he ended up staying. He ended up sticking around for quite a long time after he initially said that. So it's not a surprise. There's no beef. There's no problem. We wasn't fighting with E or anything like that. He just straight up told us, like, guys, I'm like tapped out. I want to go do something else. Like, so that's where that goes. I mean, we still talk to E. There's no issue there. We still got his number and all that other stuff. So I didn't, I just wanted to make that clear. Like, there was no drama behind it. That was 100% E's choice to do that. So I just wanted to get that clear. And shout out to E. I'm sure he'll watch it or he'll hear it or he'll text us or whatever. But yeah, that's my dude. Anyway, going into the DuckDuckGo situation, they come out and say that basically we're going to tailor our results to be anti-Russia, more or less. I mean, I'm just summing it up. They said a lot more than that, but basically they're on the anti-Russia propaganda wave, and it looks as if they're. I don't know why they would do that, but it is what it is. Like Warren says, duck, duck, blow. I really didn't understand. I didn't understand that move coming from DuckDuckGo. It was kind of weird because you would think that the way the propaganda and the narrative and everything is going, you would think that they want to separate themselves or stand apart from the Googles of the world, right? You would think they would say, look, you type in whatever, we won't fuck with the algorithm to bring up, we won't mess with the algorithm like that. But they did, and it just makes no sense to me. So I guess a lot of people are upset. A lot of people uninstalled it. I mean, I still have it on my phone. I'll still use it every once in a while, because you just can't always use Google, or some of the other ones. But it's just like everything else, man. You can't put your heart into any of these things, any of these products. People, they're going to disappoint you at some point in time. So you kind of just got to treat them like a short stay at the motel. I'm sure Warren will get that reference.
Well, that's kind of been my viewpoint on all of this. I mean, people are like, "Oh, we'll go over there and go use this or go use that or whatever," and I find that all of these things we run into the same issue. Eventually, down the road, we're going to find out that okay, they're going to be co-opted or they're going to change their standpoint, and it at this point, I just come to the conclusion that you can't hide from any of this stuff. I mean, there's no they have the control over all of this stuff. I mean, it doesn't matter. There's cameras literally everywhere you go. They have you on camera. They have your DNA. They have all of that stuff. They listen to you, so you can go to. Well, I'm going to use this secure messaging site, which I'm forgetting the name of it right now, but there's one messaging site which a lot of people
are you talking about Signal?
Not Signal, but they fall up under that same group in my opinion also. Where what is it? Pluto? Is it something like that? Where they've been found that they're doing the same thing. This happened in like Sweden or something or Finland, where because they're out of Finland, they a lot of times they're out of the United States jurisdiction, so people feel like, oh, well, we're safe there. Well, what happened is the French courts literally, went to Finland and was like, "Yo, we need to get into this person's info. We need to get into their email," and boom, they let them right in. So there's anybody who thinks, well, I got this, so this protects me, or I got this avenue, and this is a circumvent around this or that. What you're doing is you're doing the same thing as people who walk around and put on masks are doing. You're giving yourself a false sense of security. That's all you're doing. There is no getting away from a lot of these things. So just
And
wanted
you
to
know
put
what
that.
the issue, you know what the issue is too. The problem is, again, this doesn't apply to anybody in this audience or yourself, because when we search, right, we know what comes up. We're looking at, we see the results, we see the sources, right, whether it be New York Times, Washington Post, NPR, the usual big boys. We can look at these articles, these stories, these videos, and we can use our sense of knowledge, and we could, parse through it, read between the lines. We know what they're saying by what they don't say, right? We know the
Mm-hmm.
bullshit. The problem is we are in the minority of a minority of a minority. The masses will still fall victim to it. So I guess maybe in some way getting people off the internet would probably be that'd probably be a good thing in the long run. Yeah, I've
I'm
used
trying
Proton
to.
Mail before. When I was like on the dark web, fucking around, I was using Proton Mail a lot.
That's what it is. Proton Mail that I was thinking of. Proton Mail is the one that did that. Here we go. This is a video which Fiorella was talking about. Yes, we are in the matrix. Anybody who thinks that they have some protection who protects them, you're not completely you haven't completely come out of the matrix if that's what you believe. And Jen says, and the planet is heating up quickly, but we all forgot about that. I think what it is people only
They are
think about
shadow.
people only
Sorry,
think
go
about
ahead.
what the yes, and by that logic, the masses are in danger. The masses are completely in danger. We got to remember, a lot of our parents and elders have been put into the Russophobia since they've been kids. I mean, now since we've been kids and they were in their early, or late teens, early 20s, they've been looking at Russia bad. And some of them who their parents who are still around, our grandparents, lived through the 50s when it was the whole Cold War and all that stuff going on. So it's so easy for them in a emergency to start trusting, the major narrative all over again, and that's what a lot of them are doing. I found that clip which I wanted you guys to see that the Convo couch covered. The one I was talking about was Zelensky. For
Didn't he
those
have a
who
joke? Didn't he have a joke that said, you can't find any more copies of Mein Kampf in Ukraine because it's
yeah,
all sold out?
that's the
Or something
clip.
like
That's
that?
the clip that I'm gonna show. Let's see, get it to the right spot. Yeah, here, let's play some of this.
Талантливый человек. Вы в этом можете сами убедиться. Посмотрите, что он говорил до того, как стал президентом.
Здравствуйте, дядя Игорь, дядя Валя и дядя Саша. Вопреки вашим опасениям сообщаю, что живу я хорошо, пока живу. Дальше будет еще лучше, потому что уже 3 недели, как я принят в бандеровцы. А как иначе? Иначе у нас в Украине карьеры не сделать. Хотя что я вам рассказываю, вы и так все знаете. Зарплата у меня маленькая, но это не главное. Ведь нам разрешили отбирать деньги и имущество у русских. А раньше можно было и у евреев. Но потом пришел главный бандеровец Коломойский и запретил. Я, например, сейчас учу английский язык, чтобы забыть русский.
I wanted to pause that because let me go back just a little. Look at this face right here. You see this woman? Let me go back to you. You guys see the this woman sitting there, this blonde woman in the green. If you look at the look on her face, look at the gentleman behind her also. You look at some of these faces in the crowd. The gentleman down there in the black shirt towards the bottom. They are not smiling. And the reason why is because though he's joking, they don't find these jokes very funny. And this is done in front of a Russian audience. Some of these people, their ancestors have lived through some of this stuff, and they understand that some of this stuff is not a joking matter. So I just wanted to point that out, and then let's go back into the clip.
Я, например, сейчас учу английский язык, чтобы забыть русский. В этом мне помогают американские наемники, которые у нас тут на каждом шагу. Знаете, я женился во второй раз на Вадике. Для нас, европейцев, это нормально. Сегодня наш президент, ну, самый главный, который у нас самый главный президент, Барак Обама, пообещал, что мы скоро вступим в НАТО. Пока, естественно, на правах американского прихвостня. Если есть возможность, друзья, вышлите, пожалуйста, мне книгу Гитлера «Майн кампф». А то у нас разметают. Бывало, утром выхожу на балкон и начинаю делать зарядку. От сердца к солнцу, вот так. Ну, что я вам рассказываю, вы же так сейчас...
Yeah. So, Chris, what did you think of that?
I mean, you know, just there's a lot of truth in comedy, right?
Yeah, I mean, all good comedy has truth in it. That's why it's funny, because people are able to relate to it. I imagine that, I don't know for a fact, but my theory would be probably some of those people might be Ukrainians and don't think that that's funny, because they probably see what he's saying there. Hopefully, Thomas says Marcus sees things we don't. Hopefully that I'm not seeing things out of, you know, being completely wrong and off key. But if I am, hopefully, you know, it balances out in the scales and you guys see, you know, the truth. And I guess I would say look at these things, you know, individually and see if you are seeing things in there which, you know, everybody don't notice the first time around. I noticed the fact of this guy is sitting there with, think about it. When have you ever seen a comedian literally come out with a notepad and stand there and read their jokes off of a notepad? That's something that I find, you know, that should be a little bit disturbing also, because what that tells me is more than likely he didn't even write these jokes. And if he did write these jokes, he didn't spend the time to actually even rehearse them to be able to do them naturally. He's literally reading it as if it's a script, like he did on his TV shows, which tells me more than likely somebody else scripted that for him.
It's all theater, kid. That's what I be saying. Like, it's all theater. You're gonna put, you know, who better to have in office than, if you're gonna have a puppet, right? You may as well have one that knows how to act, right? So it makes sense for him. It makes sense for him to be there. But going back to his routine, again, he told the truth in everything he said. Of course, you know,
everything he said, we're seeing the results of these things. That's the, you know, we're able to concrete see line by line by line by line by line the stuff that he's saying. And how I tell people that the media knows what they're doing and they know that they're hiding it. It's not this like, oh, well, they didn't know the Azov battalion, you know, has Nazis in it. How they know is when they say International Women's Day and they put a Ukrainian woman on there, and then it's pointed out, oh, she has the black sun on her chest. And for those who do not know what the black sun is another Nazi symbol. Chris, can you pull up the black sun? That way people can see what it looks like. And if you start looking through these pictures and start looking at some of the other Nazi symbols and SS symbols, you'll start seeing more and more of these within the ranks of the Azov battalion. Now, not every Ukrainian over there that's fighting is of the Azov battalion, but every part of their battalions has a unit for the Azov battalion. Yes, of course. And well, the Nazi symbol in general was stolen by the Nazi. Well, what's called the Nazi symbol now was stolen in general. It actually goes back to yes. You see the black sun there. That is the symbol which they have stolen. Shut up, Steve. But yes, that's the symbol that we're talking about right there. Yeah, you can put it down, Chris. But
well, you know, to Steve's comment about me and my Proud Boy shirt, right? Well, you know that the other Chris called you a Proud Boy, so I guess we just coming full circle, right? So, you know, we the Proud Boys in the Matrix, right?
Well, he's the one that's supposedly in the Proud Boy shirt, and I was the one called the Proud Boy. So I guess we're
correct. So
we're the undercover Black Proud Boys.
I'm telling you.
Well, wait a minute. Didn't they just recently have a so-called Proud Boy who was arrested, who was definitely melanated fellow?
Yeah, I think they had that. It's a Spanish dude. I think they just arrested him and he got brought up on charges. I don't think it was anything that serious. I don't think he's gonna do any amount of time. But you know, I guess they had to. I'll bring the black rifle coffee. But yeah, I don't remember his name, and to be quite honest, I don't even feel like pulling up his name. But everybody could search it. One of the former leaders of the Proud Boys, or somebody who is affiliated with them, was just brought in by the feds in connection with the viewing tour of the Capitol on January 6th of last year. So I think he may have had mud on his shoes, and you know they're bringing him in for that. You know he's supposed to take his shoes off at the door. Thank you, Enrique Tario. Thank you. You know he was supposed to take his shoes off at the door, and he didn't. Now they're mad at him because he smudged shit all over the carpet. So I mean that's essentially what his charge is, and you know the punishment is. And we know he's a snitch. Oh yeah, there you go, Steve. Yeah, he been working with them for a long time. That's why I'm like. I don't pay that shit no mind. Whether it's that's about some sorry, I was just reading the comment. Dale is saying that Slimer is a bot. I don't know what that means, but I mean I don't know what Slimer wrote. But anyway, going back to it. But yeah, we the Proud Boys, Steve. Thanks for pointing that out, okay? We appreciate it.
Marcus,
yeah, what else
I wanted to read this comment Gene has here. Says or John, I'm not sure which way you pronounce it, but please clarify for me. I don't want to mispronounce your name. Says, am I wrong? Wasn't Hitler Catholic, and didn't the German Nazis kill Catholics? So does it really matter if Zelensky is Jewish? Not that he is a literal Nazi too. No, it does not matter at all. And here's the thing: just because you are just because you follow a certain religion, that doesn't necessarily connect to what your ethnicity might fall up under. So you know, it all gets a little muddled there. I'll try not to get too much into that topic and not get myself in trouble. You know, I've heard certain comments. Well, I don't want to be like Whoopi. So I'll be careful there. I wanted to bring up let's see, I'm pretty sure this means you're supposed to get a job. Boy, Steve, stop. I wanted to bring up these Biden comments about 1990 from 1997. Now I'll admit I'm not the first person to be onto this, but I feel it's relevant, especially that so many Biden supporters are supporting every little thing going on with the actions in Ukraine. And I like to go to Mr. Joseph Robinette Biden to hear his take on things.
I think the one place where the greatest consternation would be caused in the short
Turn
term
it up, Marcus, if you
to
can.
admission,
Okay, hold on a sec.
having nothing to do with the merit and preparedness of the country to come in, would be to admit the Baltic states now in terms of NATO-Russian, U.S.-Russian relations. And if there was ever anything that was going to tip the balance, were it to be tipped in terms of a vigorous and hostile reaction, I don't mean military, in Russia, it would be that. So the way I look at the calculus here is
Oh, sorry, I didn't find a longer one. But what he goes on to say in there is he talks about, you know, that if Russia is to start getting ticked off and for it to lead to any kind of problem, that problem would have to do with, you know, these Baltic states being included into NATO, and this whole westward push or eastward push from the allies. Yes, Robinette Corn Pop. Yes, that would be a catalyst for this. I mean, we literally have CIA agents who have talked about that this is a strong possibility of these things happening as far back as 2008. French pronunciation, Jean. Okay, so yes, and you're welcome. What did that say here? I missed that comment. These asshats are good at parsing words. But what do you think about Biden's old statements there? He literally knew what was going on. 2008.
They've all known this. This is nothing new. It's nothing new at all. They've been saying this. This is why there's been a push to bring, you know, certain former USSR countries into NATO. You know what I'm saying? They already knew what their red line is or was. You know, if you tell me, yo, Chris, if you come over here and you snatch my hat, yo, it's going down. If I come over there and take your hat off your head, I know what to expect. So, again, it's all I can't. Like I said, man, I'm so tired of Russia and Ukraine.
I'm not even going to give people. I'm not going to give the disclaimer, which I hear a lot of other people saying. They'll say, well, we know that the West has been pushing more into that buffer zone and crossing, just a habitual line stepper. We know that's what they're doing, but you know, Putin doesn't have no. Okay, so if he shouldn't be doing this, and it's so, you know, whatever adjective you want to put on it, how bad you think it is, then what do you feel that he should do? I put it to you like this: if me and Chris had an issue, and Chris tells me, you can say whatever you want to me, don't put your hands on me, and I just keep slapping the shit out of Chris, at what point is Chris justified to slap me back? That's what you have to think of when you look at this, and not look at, but Putin shouldn't do anything. You guys are literally invading this man's space, and I like to bring up the game of Risk. I heard Mark Shablota bring it up. That's what's kind of been going on. If we go back to, and I believe somebody said it earlier, that the CIA has kind of, the Cold War never really ended. All they've been doing is kind of pushing it under wraps and pretending like they're the good guy. It's kind of like when you see somebody in basketball, which like fouls the hell out of somebody and then puts their hands up, hey man, I didn't do anything. Knowing that they did it. Or if you like football, you know, wide receiver and cornerback, and the cornerback throws his hands up. What? I didn't do anything. Or if you want to say football or soccer, when, you know, a guy does an illegal tackle or trip, and then he throws his hands up and freaking out when he gets a yellow card. It's the same thing. The U.S. is being the person who is pushing these actions through proxy war, and then acting like they're not doing anything wrong, while completely trying to censor anybody who would tell the whole story. And doesn't mean you necessarily are saying that, yeah, I'm 100% with Putin. No, I look at everybody in here is not a good guy. Everybody's a bad guy. But let's not lie about what's really going on there. Chris, I was wondering, have you heard anything about Hunter Biden? Speaking of Russia.
No, did he relapse? I mean, I hope he wouldn't. You know, I don't want anybody smoking crack. You know what I'm saying, and messing with underage girls. But you know, what about him?
Well, what's going on with Hunter Biden right now is there has been he's going through court right now. And there have been a couple of witnesses saying some interesting things about him. And remember how everybody during the primaries were trying to bring up what was going on with Hunter Biden and Burisma Holdings. All of those things which everybody talked about, which they were demonized. Yes, exactly. Hunter Biden's laptop is made. Goodness, Warren. It might
No,
be.
Warren. I would just disagree because if it was, he never would have left that shit behind so many damn times. He would have had that shit with him.
But what's going on now is all of the stuff which they've been saying about it is now starting to come out, and it's starting to get harder and harder for the media to ignore it. What does Shadow have here said? But also, Marcus, it would be foolish to believe that is only Russian oligarchs' intentions. It's convenient to take back, but RT is calling the Russian world. I think I've always been told there's your side, his side, and the truth. And so to a degree, there's propaganda which comes out from Russia. To a degree, there's propaganda which comes out from Ukraine. And then there is what's really going on in there. When they show some of these videos on the mainstream media and they show some of the Russian troops looking, completely uncoordinated and goofy, and everybody's like, oh, well, see, Putin has showed his hand how weak he really is, and they're not well trained. That's what the media wants people to see. I feel like Russia hasn't been saying very much because their goal is to reincorporate Ukraine in a more peaceful manner, and they're going to want some of these citizens to be back on board with them. So if they go in and just destroy every damn thing, that's never going to be able to happen. Was Hunter ever non-lapse? No, he wasn't. Juicy. We're talking about Juicy Smollett, as Dave Chappelle called it. What's some of your thoughts on that? Yeah, let's just jump around a little bit. What's some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, man, I don't even care. Juicy. Yo, did you see that dude in court? I'm not suicidal.
Yeah. I'm like, ain't nobody worried about killing you. You are a man. You're not Epstein, dude. You're not holding evidence on a bunch of different people. You're not somebody tied in with the whole Ghislaine Maxwell trial.
He's gonna go inside and be put in PC. He's not gonna be in Gen Pop. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and they're gonna put him in the clubs. They're gonna put him in probably the what they'll do is they'll put him in like the most daintiest kind of situation possible. Probably give him like, oh, well, you can get out for work. And so they'll have some acting projects that he'll have to do, and he'll get out for that. Let's see. Oh yeah, there was one other subject which I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on, but I did want to bring notice to it. The court has put out a judgment that Pfizer has to release the information instead of that 55-year wait. They have to put that out all this year. So they've started out releasing some of their documents. Now, I would like to key on in just one part. 9 pages of side effects. that's what they're really trying to hide, the 9 pages of side effects. What's some of your thoughts on that, Chris?
Well, we're not supposed to be reading this stuff for 75 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's, don't we have to wait for Chris Cuomo and somebody at CNN to tell us it's okay to go through that stuff, right? we aren't supposed to be talking about it, correct? Oh, I don't know where Marcus went off to, but anyway, we're talking about the Pfizer data release. I mean, again, we already knew that the data was going to show what we have been talking about specifically on this show for a long time, that the vaccine was causing issues. We knew that. I mean, again, it's not telling us anything we didn't already think. I guess now we have that confirmation. But again, this audience, us, we already knew something was off. We already knew something was off with it, which is why they wanted to hide it from the people for so long to begin with. I'm not at all surprised. I'm sure we'll find out more. I'm just waiting for what I really want to know, and I guess I won't know for some time, is how it affects people's ability to have children. I just want to know who's sterile. I just want to see the number of people who will be made sterile as a result of this, because I think that was probably one of the bigger parts of what they really wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess answering questions and going back and forth. Yeah, Cook County is no joke, but I do not see him going into Cook County. That's not where he's going. Yeah, some of the side effects to it. Of course, we know about the myocarditis, but it talked about a lot of different side effects that were pretty crazy. I don't want to go into it all because I'm not trying to misspeak on something and say something wrongly, and I also don't feel like pulling it all the way up because I look at it like this. I didn't have to take the damn thing. I don't want to take the damn thing. The people who wanted to took it, and that is on them for them taking that risk, and we will leave it there. As long as it doesn't come back around and get forced to have to take it, then I'm not extremely concerned about it.
Well, you notice the media coverage, and for people in the audience who may have children in school, we're all getting emails, saying like, oh, we're relaxing all the restrictions in schools, et cetera, et cetera. So it seems as if we should be on Russia's side, because Russia, in addition to bombing Ukraine, has actually cured us of COVID, because there's actually no mention of it at all anymore. It's Russia. It sounds like Marsha. It's Russia, Russia, Russia. So COVID disappeared. So you know what? Keep fucking bombing. I don't care. As long as they stop talking about COVID, telling us it's bullshit, I'm okay.
Well, all of this is narrative chasing. I mean, and what all this has shown me is the degree and level of propaganda and how much people are like. I watch these people, and it's follow every single thing that Fauci says and do this and do that. And then whatever the truckers strike, I mean, you can literally tell who they're listening to by their opinions on every issue. Because it's like, I already know you watch CNN. Just by what you're saying, you watch CNN, because you are changing with every single narrative that they say. Like, I listened to somebody I work with who, yeah, man, I think the Russians, man, I think they overplayed their hand, man. And I'm like, you do realize Russia's only put 200,000 troops, roughly 250,000 troops, versus Ukraine's 600,000. You realize that Russia could literally say, you know what, let's throw 10 million troops in there in a heartbeat if they wanted to. But they listen to what they're hearing and don't think like that.
Yo, Marcus, they've been asking about your about what you did back there. I sent it to my brother too. He was laughing too. He was like, "Yo, who did this?"
I mean, it does a very cool poster behind you. I created that. I did that. Believe it or not, hopefully nobody from work's watching. I did this at work. I I had Chris send me over a pic, and I was like, Chris, I need to pick you with sunglasses. I gotta create, a new I gotta create some new show graphics. And so yeah, that's what I put together. For those who don't notice, let me move my head. You see that Cy Lawson as Captain Ballard, Captain Ballard Lawson. For those who don't know who Captain Ballard is, that was Roy Jones Jr. played Captain Ballard in the movie, and he was pretty badass. I don't know, Chris, did you ever see? Because this part got cut out of the movie. Do you know there's a fight scene where he fights Seraph?
Where they have Roy Jones fight the Guardian to the Oracle.
Yeah, that's that scene right there.
No, did I see that? Yeah.
I'm gonna pull it up so you guys can see. Chris. It was really Chris, but they're gonna put Roy Jones' face in there because they had to hide Chris's identity. And so I'll show you Chris being a bad, because Chris is really, what they did is that was an early deep fake, and they put Roy Jones' face over Chris. Let's find it real quick. Ballard versus Seraph.
Yeah, they already going crazy outside on my street for St. Patty's Day. I'm like, damn, y'all have like days in advance.
Yeah, they're ready to go, huh?
Yo, they partying hard outside. They had the stage. They closed off the street. They got the stage on the street from yesterday. They outside getting drunk as hell.
Oh, don't worry. I know you're gonna be down there with them in a heartbeat. Yeah, this is it. Let's put it on the big screen. Actually, no. Let's put Chris down there so y'all can see his reaction to his wonderful fight coordination.
Alex, you on the south side?
Here we go.
Oh, yes, I do remember this now.
Who the hell are you?
I am Seraph, guardian of the Oracle.
Is that right?
I can take you to her. But first, I must apologize.
For what?
For this. Good. You do not truly know someone until you fight them. Come with me.
Only thing you know about me is I was about to kick your ass.
Damn, Chris, I know you threw down like that, bro.
Oh, yeah, man. I try to keep that, low.
Alex, I heard something about NYC. Could you confirm? I heard that apartments were jumping up to $3,000 a month.
Oh, hell yeah. They just put something out in the paper. They're like, they can expect increases of like anywhere. Oh, absolutely, Gene. Absolutely. Hell yeah. Yes. Yeah, I can.
I move like Morpheus moves now. And I'm talking about Lawrence Fishburne.
No, but no, they were talking about raising the prices in New York. I mean, not prices, but the increase in rent up to like $1,000 in some places. But I mean, if you know anything, rent's been high in New York for a long time, and if they raise your rent only $1,000, in some cases that might be low for some people or reasonable for some people. I have not lived there in years. We're saying 3,000 for one room. Yeah, correct, Alex. Yeah, so they're gonna do the same thing in New York. I mean, today on the street. Correct. Thank you, Thomas. I ain't old at all. with that being said, look, let me tell you, whatever they're doing in New York is having a major effect here. I can't tell you, I went to the beach today. Man, Pennsylvania plates, Jersey plates, New York plates, all over the place. It's annoying. It's creating traffic, and there's just a bunch of idiot ass people who are now here. Man, they changed everything, kid. It's so different. I see Bushwick, Bed-Stuy, Brownsville. Hell yeah, and those are okay. So perfect example since we're staying in New York, right? Bushwick, Bed-Stuy, Brownsville. Black neighborhoods, for lack of a better term, right? All black neighborhoods. Brownville's like Brownsville's the pits, right? Brownsville used to be really, really, really bad. I mean, it still is. It's Brownsville. But with that being said, even there, they're raising the rent, so they're gonna gentrify all of Brooklyn. They come in East New York too. Yep. Damn, those are my stomping grounds, war there. Damn, because after Queens, Brooklyn was the one place I would go to, even though we were told to stay out of Brooklyn because it was so dangerous at the time. But if you tell us a danger, we're gonna run to it. So to see those neighborhoods transforming is crazy, and the people who are from there will no longer they're not going to be able to live there any longer. So they're going to sell their shit, get whatever they can out of it, and they're coming down here, unfortunately. Yeah, Alex, that's where I'm from.
Yeah, I mean, and I think this is also going back into, some of the WEF, World Economic Forum, when Klaus Schwab said, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. This is going into them, pushing people out of, owning property into more renters. I have one more thing to bring up. We were able to move through most of the topics I wanted to get through today, unless you have something else. But I wanted to bring up this one from Bryce Mitchell. Are you familiar with it, Chris? His comments.
With who?
Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell. His comments on Ukraine. Here, well, good. It'll be fresh for you to see. So I'll play that real quick. Hold on a second. All right, hold on. Let's share my screen. All right. Yeah, he said these comments when asked. Oh no, I thought I clicked on it, but.
Well, I just wanted to get your thoughts on the whole Russia and Ukraine situation.
Here's my first thought is I'm not going nowhere to fight none of these wars for these politicians. I'm staying at home, and when the war comes to Arkansas, I will dig my boots in the ground and I will die for everything I love, and I will not retreat. If this country's invaded and everybody's saying, well, we gotta evacuate, we gotta leave, I will not. I will dig my boots in the Arkansas soil, and I will fight for the people that I love, for the land that I love, and the way of life that I love. But I'm not going overseas to fight. I don't know what's going on, to be honest, brother. I really don't. There's so much stuff, and I don't think nobody knows what's going on fully. There's been so much political corruption in that area. You got Biden and his son making a shit ton of money off of and using our tax dollars to bribe their people. That's treasonous, in my opinion. So you got Hunter Biden and his son using our tax dollars. Hey, if Ukrainian government, if you don't do this, we're taking your tax dollars. He shouldn't be giving our tax dollars to that country anyway. We got veterans out here sleeping on the street, and you're going to give our freaking tax dollars to these Ukrainians and all. Brother, I don't know what's going on over there, but I'm not going over there and fighting. And God bless anybody that's over there fighting. And I hope that the shit just gets solved. And man, I don't like war. You know what I mean? I don't want people dying and all that stuff. I don't want to be, but I don't know what's going on. There's so much stuff that I think that's corrupted that we just don't know what's truly going on over there. And I pray all those people are safe.
Yeah. So what's your thoughts on that clip there?
No, I don't blame him at all. I just wish he probably would have expanded beyond the Biden stuff, but I know he didn't have too much time. But I mean, I'm glad he was able to at least get that out there, right, and say that in front of that camera so people can hear it and maybe look it up. So that was good. But I mean, I couldn't agree with him more because look, there's a lot of information out there, right? And there's a lot of good people, there's a lot of good people trying to figure out what's going on, but even they aren't fully aware of what's going on. There's a lot of moving pieces and there's a lot of interest there. So to think that from the United States, just that we can look over there and get it and get the story exactly right, we'd be fooling ourselves. So I agree with what the guy said. We really don't know what's going on.
And
Not
especially
100% anyway, you know.
well, and especially how many of these false mainstream media has been putting out so many different false stories.
I mean, just look at all the propaganda in Ukraine. I mean, the lady who's blown up, fake news. The ghost of Kiev, lies. The tank in the street, the bombing of this. I mean, there was a whole list I saw of things that were reported here as news and as fact turned out to be all bullshit. So
I mean, I'm still hearing people who are still talking about the Turtle Island, or Snake Island. You know, thanks, War Deer. But people who are still acting like that's the truth. Oh, sorry, Chris. I thought you were saying something.
No. I was just responding to Shadow's comment. The first casualty of war is, and I was just saying the truth. Like,
It's
we
the
already
truth.
know.
Yeah. I like his comments because at least he is being skeptical about things. And I'm listening to, the people who grew up watching, Rocky IV and watching the pregnant lady who gave birth as fake news. The Rocky IVs, just all of the different stuff that we've been programmed as Russia's always bad. I mean, you look at the what is it, Jack Ryan that they have on Amazon Prime. I think, what is it, Prime or Hulu? Either one of those. But all of these shows, The Americans, all of this stuff is to push more and more and more of Russophobia. I mean, I'm trying to remember the famous composer, Russian composer, which he is even getting, canceled right now. You guys know who I'm talking about?
No, go ahead. Keep going.
What's his name? Tchaikovsky, I believe. Let me pull it up. Then when you guys hear the song, you guys will be familiar with it. Russian composer. Sorry. There we go. Tchaikovsky. I'm trying to look for his most famous one. Oh, wait a minute. That's right. I'll pull it up on here. And that's the reason why some people don't like some of these more mainstream people. But sometimes they will hint on a couple of little things to bring up, which most people don't know about. And here it is. This was actually on the Hill. Where is it? Share. He is being canceled now. Granted, this man died over 130 years ago, but that doesn't matter to people.
Familiar, right? The piece famous.
Yes. Now he is, and because he's Russian now, and that's what they're doing. Whether it's that means that they have to cancel Explosion Scene from Caddyshack, and they'd have to go back to Home Alone. I believe they use that in there. There's so many movies where this has been used. Hey, Mona, how we doing? There, yeah, roll over Beethoven, tell Tarkovsky to do this. Yeah, that's what's happening now. It's turning to Russophobia, and I say this because the powers that be and people who are normally, oh, that's another one. Thanks for reminding me, Shadow. V for Vendetta, ban that one also now. I mean, they don't realize how many things.
Really? And V? Oh yeah, that's right. It is in there.
Yeah, remember the explosion that they
when they were blowing up the parliament, right?
Yes, that's in there also. I mean, you have these idiots out there who are like, let's pour out Russian vodka. All of this nonsense that's going on, and basically Russophobia. And I look at it just like, I mean, and this is the same mentality which people had after 9/11. Oh, well, some of the people who attacked us were Muslims. So anybody who looks close to being a Muslim, oh, now we gotta be against them. It's, to me, this is reminiscent of the same thing which happened in the 90s when people like Hillary Clinton started out with the super predator stuff. What happened? More police violence started to rise. Yes, back to the freedom fries thing. The police violence started to rise, and also if you notice in the media and you start looking at the movies and stuff, what did you start seeing most blacks and Latinos casted as after that? Gangsters. That's all they wanted to cast as. Gangster number 4, gangbanger number 4. That's what they start casting as, because they start looking at, because a handful of people fall up under this. Now let's just blanket put that onto everybody. Yes, I would say yes. As a whole, we are dumb people. Just like what is it? Tommy Lee Jones' character said at the beginning of Men in Black. He said, people individually are smart, but people are dumb. And what we have right now is we have a media which is broadcasting their message to a brain dead populace who is just listening to what they're told to do. And I'm literally watching people around me who think like this, and they're being every day they get worse and worse and worse. I heard this is the standpoint which is being pushed from CNN and Fox News. Both of them are in tandem together. What does that say? Oh, Facebook gonna, yeah, I'll talk about that. But
okay.
They are in tandem pushing the whole what was I saying? Oh, that, you know what, we can't keep taking these threats from Russia. So what we need to do is we need to call their bluff. You're really wanting to play chicken basically with 2 nuclear countries. That's what you're saying is a smart idea, even though they literally have nothing to do with what's going on. It's kind of like deciding, I want to possibly gamble and risk everything I have for somebody across the way, even though that doesn't have anything to do with me. Actually, and most of these people who are saying this, I'm like, do you realize you're advocating U.S. who is not really, who can still, back out of this? You're advocating them to get to a point of no return and literally play chicken with the world. Marcus never invited me to talk about. I will. What I'm going to start, I'm going to start doing them live. I just had a couple of areas where I got really deep in some stuff and I got it wrapped up, but I will start having the Hebrew apologetics live. I noticed somebody earlier say out of the mouth of babes. So, I noticed that they obviously know a little bit about the good book. It says there are no winners in nuclear wars. So anybody who is even pushing towards that, they're like, well, how far should we go? Should we let them take it? And what the mainstream media is starting to push is that he's just not trying to go into Ukraine and take Ukraine. What he's doing is he's going with Ukraine And then he's going to take back the whole USSR. And then after that, he's going to go into Russia. I mean, not Russia. He's going to go into Germany, and he's going to go into France. And he's just going to do a whole complete westward march until he takes over all of Europe. I'm like, where is this idiocy even coming from? I mean, that's what's blowing my mind, that people are thinking like that. And on to what Mona mentioned, they are literally condoning, that you can wish death upon people now on social media, as long as they're Russian, or Russian troops, which eventually that's going to extend out to Russian people. And then eventually that extends out to people in America who are sympathetic to the cause. That's a lot of times how these things start going. It's like 6 degrees of separation, pushing it further and further onto everybody else. Go ahead, Chris.
No, I was just going to say, it's kind of wild that they actually came and put that out, right? They didn't just let it happen, right? And just not ban the people who said things. They actually put out a statement like, yeah, yo, go at the Russians all you want, kid. Like, talking about killing them, who cares?
Remember not too long ago, I got in trouble for making a joke about Biden. And it was the one where Biden is, Putin is staring at the screen on the teleconference with Biden. And it says, caption this. And I said, I can't wait till I bomb you. Ha, ha, ha. Got me banned off of Twitter for a week. I only listened to this.
Yeah, I mean, L had a harmless joke not too long ago, and it got rid of her. I mean, they punished her for a little bit too. So, I mean, now all of a sudden, so I guess anything you have to say, just make it Russian, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you should be okay.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing about it is, it's a slippery slope. Once you start doing that, then you start inviting. Okay, well, the next time around, now you can say, and here's something I just learned recently, which I didn't know. In some of these other languages, the language translation might come across as deaf to this, but in their language, it doesn't actually mean that. It just kind of means like, well, this sucks, or this is crappy. It doesn't literally mean deaf to that, but it only has one way of translation. So it's getting mixed up. So even if some of these people are saying this, they might not even be meaning it that way. You said don't click that link. Oh, look, it'll probably be like that Pastor Chris put on here last time. It was a little, I don't know. I'll let you guys go check that video out. Yeah, soon all of us will abandon YouTube. At the moment, and people say go to Rockfin. If Rockfin will have me, I will be there. It's not me saying, you know what, screw Rockfin. I've been trying to get on Rockfin for over a year now. So I guess maybe if we can get more patronage and get a larger audience, then maybe they might consider us. But at this moment, Rockfin has not shown any interest in having us on their platform. But that doesn't mean we can't keep trying. What did it say? Did y'all see the tweet? Some politicians said that Russians can make it look like you looked upon gay porn. I replied with no, honey. What are y'all talking about out there? I replied with no, honey. I didn't Google gay porn. It was the Russians. Wow. Oh, wow.
Yo, Kelly won the night. There. Drugs are really expensive.
And we getting the shrooms soon. Let's see. Here we go. Let's read this comment, because this is something I want to talk about. What was that? We'll get to it.
Yeah, next week we'll have an update for you. We'll have a new sermon from the pastor.
Well, yeah. In fact, I even thought of a little skit me and Chris could do about some pastors. I'll talk to Chris about it and see if he's interested. I kind of start cracking up about it. I'll give you the names which popped in my mind. I don't know why, but what was it? Reverend Do Right and Deacon Do Wrong. But this is something I wanted to respond to this. Ruby Krill says, I wonder if Putin is against World Economic Forum with what he is doing, or just playing his role with them. What a lot of people will just see, well, Putin was at the World Economic Forum. Just because he was there doesn't necessarily mean that everything he's in concert with. What I mean by that is, if you go back to what he said at the World Economic Forum, because when I watched his speech was, y'all step over this line, this is what's going to happen. And so he was telling people, if the US keeps doing what they're doing, this is what's going to happen. I look at the World Economic Forum almost just like the military. They all have their different avenues. There are some people who are just medics in the military. And then there's some people who are doing intel work. There are some people who are the actual infantry. There are some people who are doing black ops. So every single thing is not all encompassed in certain plans. Also, if you guys caught my old Illuminati video, even the Illuminati were not always on the same page. All these people at the top, when they were trying to come up with the when they were trying to come up with the Federal Reserve of the United States, the Vanderbilt, a couple of high-profile Vanderbilts and Astors were against the forming of it. They ended up somehow, not really being around for much longer, and then it went through anyway. So, and then you go back to the Romanovs. The Romanovs were one of the big power players, and what happened to the Romanov family? So just because all the elites are at the top doesn't mean that they're always on the same board and everybody's not marching to the same script. And I also think of the World Economic Forum isn't even the top of that pyramid. There's levels that go above that. That's just one of the tools that top illuminated class uses. So, and everybody looks at like Klaus Schwab as the puppet master. He is just an errand boy. You're not going to know the actual people who, for one, if he was really the top of that pyramid, why would he be giving you all the information about himself? Why would he be, riding around with reporters and all that? His goal is to keep the eyes off of the people who are pushing him. The same way with Zelensky. Zelensky is out there because he is the face of other oligarchs who are pushing narratives within Ukraine. And so everything is not as, clear cut. Literally everything has nuance. So that's what, that's just what I wanted to put out there. Who are the puppet masters? Well, I would say if you really want to look at the puppet masters, start looking into the corporations and the money trail of the people who own large chunks of everything. When you see that, a lot of people will say, well, I'll look at Google and I'll look at this and I'll look at that. Okay, well, who owns that? Then who owns that? And then who owns that? And when you start looking higher and higher and higher, you start realizing a lot of these major projects and companies and corporations are all owned by the same people. I take you back to something with which one of the Rothschilds said years ago. He said, I don't really care which puppet you put on the throne. I only care who controls Britain's money, and I control Britain's money. And so he who has the money controls, what the hell is going on. And so that's where we always gotta look to. A lot of people think, oh, if we just do the Green Party and we just get this in, or we just take over the Democratic Party and the progressives and blah, blah, blah. No. Who is funding all of these people? Who puts these politicians in power? Is it a coincidence that all of a sudden you start seeing, oh, well, it's weird that Bush is actually related to this person and that person's related to this person. And you start seeing like a lot of these people have blood related ties. This stuff does not happen by accident. That's what I'm saying. And a lot of people will in that video, I brought up, I'll just throw one out there because I remember, I can't remember his name. Chris, if you remember his name, remind me. But I was on Franco's show and I brought up the Lee family. The Lee family literally goes all the way back to the Tang Dynasty. You could literally they own the Bank of East Asia. This family, it's been in this family's hands for a couple of centuries. Well, maybe a century. I'm not sure how far the bank goes back, but it stayed in the same family's hands all of this time. It's not hard to find whoever's in control of these federal banks. And that's the reason why it gets harder and harder to find the names of that. That's the reason why they put up organizations like the World Economic Forum, the Bilderbergs, Davos, the Council of Rome. What is it? You know what I'm talking about, Chris. There's so many other ones. Actually, let me pull up in my notes, and I can throw out a couple more of those that I think you all should look at. And then you'll start seeing, oh, wait a minute, it is a little bit more convoluted than we like to think about it. Everybody thinks that it's going to fall into this nice little easy to understand diagram. Oh, here we go.
Super rich.
Council of Foreign Relations. What else is there? I guess I can't read this. It's a little bit mixed up, but these are the same people which own these parties. When people say, well, I think communism is the way. Well, you got to go back to who propped up Lenin, who popped up Trotsky. These people were funded by people. They didn't just all of a sudden rise up on their top, organically. They were funded. East Indian Trading Company, and I would add in the Dutch Indian Trading Company also. You got to start looking into who are the people who were pushing all of these things. Alex says, I started watching the doc on Carl Icahn. My stomach turned. He is one of the, yeah. This is what has been hidden and not looked upon. A lot of people, I know Chris will like to talk about this a little bit, but Gaddafi. Do you know why Gaddafi was killed? I'm not going to say it, but anybody in the chat, can you tell me why Gaddafi was killed?
Because he actually had the
Don't say it yet. I want to see if they can get it. Anybody out there, tell me why Gaddafi was killed. I know Shadow probably knows.
Oh yeah, Shadow knows.
All right, I'm gonna give it
30
seconds. 30 seconds, and then I'll have Chris explain it out.
There we go, Ruby.
Ruby, you're on to it.
Ruby and Dale. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There you go, Alex.
He told US, told US to fuck off. That's part of it. But all of those are bingo. There we go. Right here. Shadow nails it. Gold standard in the African Union. The African Union. Gaddafi was head of the African Union. A lot of people didn't even know there was an African Union. But because of the African Union, he was trying to set up a currency outside of the Western powers monetary funds. And when you start messing with the Western powers money, that's when you are going to not be around very much longer. And that's what he started doing. He was trying to unite all the African countries and start getting them to go away from the euro and American dollar. Yeah, he went after Big Pharma too, but that wasn't their biggest gripe with him. It's about the gold. It's always about the money. Yeah. Let's see. African Union must be a terrorist group. We should find some freedom fighters to kill it. That's the reason why Hillary Clinton was so happy that he was bumped out of the way. Let's see. When will that witch out? I'm loving Alex's comments. But that is what a lot of this is about. And that's what For instance, that's the reason why they're so concerned with Venezuela. I don't know if you all know this. I know Shadow's definitely going to know this, being in the oil industry. Sarkozy actually dropped the first bomb on Libya, who Gaddafi funded to get elected. And let's see, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. In the Gulf has a different type of oil that's there. That oil is a deep crude, in which they've been starting for a while to run out of it. Do we know who owns a lot of that oil down there? I mean, not the oil, but the oil refineries and the rigs. I'll let you guys. I know Shadow knows. Actually, I'll just go ahead and say it. Who's been the biggest donor to Republicans over probably the last 20, 30 years? And over the past 5 years, started donating to the Democrats also. Do we know who that is?
Mm-hmm.
Do we know who that is? Hunter Biden likes it to go in his nose now. That would be the Koch brothers. Koch brothers own a lot of the oil rigs and refineries down there. Venezuela has deep crude, and so yes, Koch, Tina. They need that.
I did want to just show. Sorry, Marcus. I did just want to show that because I think who may have said something about that. Dale did.
Dale
so
said that.
I
Yeah.
just wanted to put that on there.
Yeah, they're SD. Stop it. But yes, they Yeah. Oh, you wanted to go into that a little bit? You can. Yep. That's
No,
what
I was just showing it for the audience. That's it. I'm about to take it down.
Well, Ruby is thinking like I am. I have not said that she is going to run necessarily. I honestly feel like what they're going to do is they're going to substitute her in for Biden. If he can't, well, I already know he can't really make it. They're struggling. I don't know what they're juicing him up with to keep him still walking out there every day. But when he gets a little weaker, I've been saying it for the longest, they're going to try to substitute Hillary Clinton in there. And because they've always wanted Hillary, and the Democratic Party and the elites, they're like a dog with a bone. If they got somebody who they feel has been touting and being a good little soldier, they're going to find a way for that person to, make their way into office. Perfect example, you go to Bush Senior, George H.W. Bush. All of his workings, which he did behind the scenes, fueled him into vice president and then eventually becoming president. And so that's where I want you guys, notice that. Yeah. So back onto the Kochs. The Kochs are they want that oil. That's the reason why they always keep going back to Venezuela. That's the reason why they were trying to push Juan Guaido into power so that they could just take the oil. And so anybody that doesn't want, and we got to keep in mind, gold and oil are, those are the things which keep most of these governments running. So if we're talking about gold, we're talking about money. If we're talking about oil, we're talking about money. That's what most of this stuff is always revolving around and about. Yes, the Democratic Party establishment promised Hillary a future president if she would step out of the way for Obama. That is true. That's what all of this stuff is about. It's about getting all of their soldiers in the proper place where they want them to be to affect more and more of their agenda. But here's what I believe. This is where I feel like it runs off the, where it can be easy for some of us to just think that like they're going to be able to just pull off all of their plans forever. No, they're not going to be able to do it, because part of that contingency is expecting for Russia and China to stay subservient. As they see an opportunity to overthrow the hegemony who has been pushing for all of these things, the Western powers, they're going to take it. It's the same thing like I say all the time with a mobster. If you got one mobster who's been running everything and he's on top, those lieutenants and capos, especially if they've been disrespected, want that opportunity to take over and be the new hegemony. I heard somebody say this, so I'm not gonna take this, I'm not gonna take this and act like I came up with this statement first, but this comparison. How many of you out there seen the movie Four Brothers? Starred Mark Wahlberg, had Andre 3000. Trying to remember who else was in the movie. Do you remember this movie, Chris?
What are you talking about? Three Kings?
No. Four Brothers.
Oh, Four Brothers. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull it up and remember who all was in the movie. Because I'm going somewhere with a premise. Yeah, I also want you guys to check this movie out if you haven't seen it. I thought it was a very good movie. Entertaining. Yeah. Tyrese was in it also. Here, I will share it. But the movie Four Brothers. And for those who've seen this movie, they're going to understand what I'm talking about. This is the movie Four Brothers. In that movie, what you had happen is you had the major mobster who was in there. And he controlled his people with an iron fist. To the point where one of his people, he literally made him eat his food off the ground, him and his wife. By doing that, what that does is when people have an opportunity to say, screw this shit, and find another party to jump behind and get on board with who's not going to treat them that way, they take advantage of it. And so, I know, I see, I'm trying to finish the point before they distract me too much. But what they did is it got to the end and all of his people turned against him. And, I won't say exactly how in case you guys haven't seen the movie and want to go check it out, but that's basically what happened. They all turned against him in the end. And that's what's happening with America. As they're getting weaker and weaker at their plots of keeping everything in power, other people are starting to rise up and push back against the U.S. So that's my little mini rant and tangent on it. What's your thoughts on that, Chris?
Now, I'm rolling, kid. So I don't have much to say besides I agree. I mean, I'm reading the chat is distracting.
Yes.
These guys are funny as hell.
Yes, they are funny as hell.
There's a lot of personality in the chat, and it makes it fun to do this because whether it's Variant, Shadow,
all the
Kelly,
shows are like this. Thank you, Warrior.
Thank you, Warren. And Warren, that dude's funny. Like
we need to have Warren back on here again sometime soon. It's freaking hilarious.
Oh yeah, he's funny as shit.
I noticed Kelly said something about a third. What was she talking about? The third co-host. What did you say again? That comment remind me. It was probably something nasty.
No. It wasn't. She didn't say anything nasty. She was just asking if we were gonna bring a third one on.
I'm not going to push for one and just rush out there. But I'm not gonna rule it out. I'll say that. We're gonna just try to get used to the format with just me and Chris for the meantime, and then eventually down the road, it's possible. Of course, it'd have to be somebody who, Marcus sends out cookies. It'd have to be somebody who is. The problem we run into with a lot of people is when we start talking Illuminati and the ties with World Economic Forum and those things like that, that's where we lose people. They're like, yeah, whatever. Just curious about their host. Wish Emanuel the best. Yeah, I mean, I miss E. What we'll probably do though is it'll free up
We'll
more
have guests.
room to
We'll have
have
time for
guests.
guests.
We'll have more time for guests and more interviews and be able to get the guests. Like for instance, next week we will have Tara Reid on, and so just like this week how we had Fiorella and we had her for about first hour and 15. We'll have
I would chat with Tara Reid. Jesus, to help us souls already.
yeah, we're gonna have Tara Reid for about maybe 45 minutes or so. It's a lot of things I wanted to ask her and run through, and so we'll have her for the first part of the show, and then the rest we'll jump into whichever other crazy topics which come up between now and then. You guys know I'm going to be definitely scouring all the different stories that are going up, and in the back of my head, yes, thank you for the correction. It's read this way. Yeah, that's what we'll have going on. I'm working on trying to bring I won't say who I'm trying to work on after that. I'll just say that another powerful female commentator, which I'm hoping to bring on at least all throughout the month of March. That's what we're going to push for. And I don't want it to just be for the month of March, just overall.
Look, Thomas, to that, right? I was at work. Marcus asked me for a picture, right? So he told me, yo, send me a picture. So I sent him the picture. I'm working, doing my thing. And then, my phone goes off. I look at it and I'm just like, oh shit. I showed my coworkers, they was just dying laughing. It was like, so that was good, Marcus. You had jokes in my office behind that.
Oh yeah, they're not gonna let you live that down.
Oh, this is the multiverse, Al. So I'm Ballard and Neo.
Mm-hmm. And so that means that more than likely I'm probably two characters also. Who am I? I'm probably both the Morpheuses, huh? The new one and the Morpheus Agent Smith mix. I don't know. I'll let you guys figure that out. You guys know the nicknames, what to call us, and I take you guys' suggestions. Oh, that's hopefully that's talking about us. If so, thank you very much. It's excellent, Shadow Man. The topic spectrum and relevance is top notch. Thank you. And if Lucy is still listening, I know she said she's surprised that we don't have more subscribers at this point. I can tell you for a fact, I know that we're being shadow banned for an absolute fact. So that's why. I mean, if you look at it, most shows on average, whatever their subscriber number is, they normally get roughly about 5 to 10% of that viewership per video. Our show on average gets probably 60 to 70% of viewership from our subscribers. And then when I look at the crosstabs, the most of our viewership comes from channels which we have done interviews on the channel. So like we've had some from Frank Analysis, and that's because we've done appearances on Frank Analysis. We've had some from Revolutionary Blackout. That's because we've had Sabby on the show. We've had viewers from Convo Couch. That's because Pasta has been on, and we've had we have Slow News Day. Some of those people come over from there because we've had Steve and Gloria on. All of our top viewers are people which we have went onto other people's channel. Then when we go onto somebody else's channel, then they're like, oh, wait a minute, let's check these guys out or this team out. And so I know that the fact that we're only getting extra subscribers whenever we go on to other channels says that we're getting buried in the algorithm. And from doing this for about 3 years, I understand how they do these games and how they play these games. on my other channel, which I haven't broadcasted nearly as much, I had one video that hit 11,000, and it was not a great video. I mean, as far as editing quality, it was kind of crappy, but that video hit 11,000. After that, nothing I had got over, say, 10, 15 views. Everything started to slow down. And the fact that you see these, when I talk about the 10 and 15% of viewership, that's because even these bigger channels are being shadow banned to only that 5 and 10% of their subscribers. So, you know, it's not only happening here, it's happening to, you know, us, it's happening to, like, let's see, Lucky. It's happening to her channel, which I'm impressed. You know, she's been having good growth, and you know, I'm happy for the success that that her and Elle are having over there. You know, wish you all the best. Make sure to go check them out. I know they have they typically have a Sunday show, so make sure to go and show them some love. Warren, it's the same thing. He is a highly underrated show, funny as hell. So those who don't know about him, go check him out. Atris. Atris is always showing politics involving the global South, which does not get nearly enough, you know, coverage. It's funny, he just piped in at that time, but it doesn't get nearly enough coverage. A lot of times when I'll see him going live, I want to hop in there, but most of the time I'm driving, so I can't really say anything. But hey, brother, I am watching when you're chatting, and Rusty Shackleford, which a lot of times, every time they come up with a channel, it gets, you know, just knocked out of the box, out of the algorithm. So it's hard to keep up with them because they're willing, whether I agree with them all the time or not, they're willing to always push the boundaries. And so on what me and Chris try to do is we try to pick our battles. Some stuff we know we can't, you know, go into. And the reason why we pick our battles, I'll say for me, is because as far as this stuff getting closer to world wars and things like that, I feel like those are going to be some of the bigger topics where that's going to be coming down the pike. And so if I got to, you know, allude to and say, hey, come over here and then check out my full opinion on this other on this topic where I can't go in as much as I would want to. That's why, because I'm trying to hold out for the topics which we're most passionate on, which I know eventually is going to get us taken off of here. So, you know, that's where we stand on that. Good, you're subscribed. What did it say? I am subscribed with notifications, Lucky. Good stuff. You know, and anybody else out there who's listening who has a show also, which would like for me to plug. Oh, Thomas, you need to do some more content, brother. But Thomas, go check out his channel. Everybody who I run into it with, you know, I try to you know, chat their channels up. I hopped into Revolutionary Blackout the other day, and you know, you'll see when you guys see me, it won't be the Political Matrix. It's normally in the what I've been thinking channel. So when you see that in there, that's me. I'm normally, and you know, just floating around, listening to what other people are talking about, and even if I'm not 100% sure with, I mean, not sure, but 100% in agreement with some of the perspectives and views. Our goal from now on is to try to, I want to be harmonious with, you know, all these other content creators out there. So for some of those people who feel like, screw Jimmy Dore, I'm not going to be on here screaming the screw Jimmy Dores. I'm not going to be on here saying screw this person or that person. Everybody has a viewpoint, and everybody has pertinent, important information to put out there. And just like I showed you guys a story from The Hill, is probably 70% of what they say on The Hill. And then I'm not talking about their normal news broadcast. That's really horrible. I'm talking about Rising. Is there a lot of crap which they put out, which is not great? Yeah, a lot of crap that I disagree with, but I believe our audience and our people are more intelligent to be able to see what is worth being focused on, what is crap. And so we should always be able to just take it all in, hold the baby, throw out the bathwater. Don't throw off the baby with the bathwater. They want to censor us all who don't fall in line with the narrative. Exactly, Thomas. So I guess that is about it for the night. We're approaching that 3 hour, and we like to try to cut it off about there. Chris, you got anything which you would like to add?
No, just the usual. Thanks everybody for thank everybody for coming through, for watching the channel, for supporting, keeping the chat lit and lively. I see Kelly in the comments. Kelly comes by for the third leg jokes, which is okay. We got plenty.
And we gotta, shout out to Kelly also, because Kelly and We're Carrying Signs, and they've been around rocking with us for a long time, and so much love to them out there in Oregon,
too, Mike,
Oregon, right?
Everybody.
Oh yeah, everybody who's been with us, and I mean, I remember Signs like following me on the What We've Been Thinking before I even created this channel, back to some of my videos which only have 5 or 6 views, which some of those are still are relevant today, believe it or not. So on that channel, I'm going to be starting to do more content. You'll be seeing Jalen, me and Jalen back with Talk of the Ages. He's just had a lot of school stuff going on, and so it's been hard to figure out the logistics time-wise. But yeah, I can't wait to get back on with Jalen. Also, Jalen will probably be hopping on here occasionally to guest host. So look forward to seeing all 3 of us together on here, and look forward to whatever guests. Oh, and if you guys have any people you would like for us to interview, have on the show, hit me in the DMs.
Or topic suggestions, anything
topics
you want us to do, you can put them in the chat, whatever. We'll see it. We always go back and double check. So,
yeah,
we'll, we got a couple ideas coming up. Me and Marcus going to talk. We're going to expand this a little bit beyond just discussing the like doom and gloom type shit.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I know some people have some issues with each other, and hopefully like we'll be able to, put some of the off-camera beefs aside. But Doom and Gloom podcast, that is Glory and Seb's new channel. So those who are a fan of her and those 2 young ladies, go and check them out. That said, this is the Political Matrix. Myself, Marcus Young Morpheus Cage, side Captain Ballard Lawson. And thank you all for joining us. Much love to everybody out there. You all have a good night. Thank you.